actually magnetize the Snip Snap onto and make even bigger minions to maybe big swings late game. So I feel like that one card, it's the one new card we've got for this buff patch, and I think it's very flexible and very powerful in itself.
I would absolutely agree. Talking to a lot of pro players, it seems like the common consensus so far that Snip Snap is just a good card. Like, even if you're not running any mech package, you could just play it on 3 as it's the only mech in your deck and it would still be pretty useful. And so you're going to see that in certain decks which don't even have any other mechs this weekend. And so now Dawn queuing up. Of course, both players on their primary first, and he's got the Acorn Bearer in the opening hand, which is a good way to start off, but it's really rough when you don't see something like Whispering Woods or Dreamway Guardians to follow up.
Yeah, this is one of the drawbacks of just adding a few extra late game threats into the deck, or maybe even early game threat, depending on how wide the board gets. But look at the hand now. Solar Forest is fantastic, but then Sea Giant and then Archmage Vargoth, and now Flabidinous Floop, a card we didn't talk about much. But when there are these cards that generate tokens and generate mechs and so on, and even Archmage Vargoth, having a second one to play and follow up with is very powerful. So Dawn is off to a very slow start, but he does have some very good power plays that maybe he doesn't need to go super fast.
Yes, and he has drawn something to do this turn, even though it's off curve. I do expect that we'll be seeing the Dreamway Guardians, and Blood Trail had the double Warpath in his opening hand, and I'm sure he's very, very chilling out just seeing that. I mean, how can you be worried in this matchup when you've got that?
Yeah, it's definitely chilling for Dawn anyway, because he has to go up against this, because it's not only double Warpath, the Weapons Project, Militia. I'm just going to name every card in Blood Trail's hand because they're all good versus Druid right now. And the positive thing, at least for Dawn, is you look at Snip Snap, you look at even a Flabidinous Floop Snip Snap, as well as the Microtech. These at least don't get hard killed by a Dynomatic. So there's that level of defense, but the problem is you get hard killed by every other card in Blood Trail's hand. So already Dawn has some quite the hill to climb right now to get a win here.
Yep. Vargoth, of course, very powerful when you are able to stick it and go into buff. So if the Vargoth can stay on board and then he can land Soul of the Forest, that could potentially be very powerful. However, it seems like Blood Trail could potentially answer this if he gets something like a Shield Slam.
Does have the shield block to go, but nothing else. The one good thing, or the powerful thing, at least in my opinion, about Vargoth, and we're seeing it more and more in other minions, especially cards like Thunderhead, where just a 4 mana, 6 health minion is often quite difficult to kill. And even if you've got the minions to trade into it, the attack is even just enough early game to actually kill off a few minions. So it's kind of like a semi-taunt minion a lot of the time. But now Dawn just has full health Vargoth, but he could go for the Soul of the Forest. The double normally isn't mind-blowing, but on a board of just 2 minions, it actually is, because they go off twice. One of the problems is with double Soul of the Forest on a wide board is there's no space to go off twice. But I think this might be the turn where you just play it.
Yeah, it seems good. I mean, the alternative being Snip Snap on turn 5 is not too great. I guess the benefit is that you get Snip Snap as the flooped minion, but he won't quite have the mana to go double Snip Snap next turn. I quite like the Soul of the Forest now.
With Sea Giant in hand as well. That's how you get your wide board to get an early Sea Giant down. And that's not a minion that dies to Warpath that often.
At the very least, this disincentivizes Blood Trail from trying to deal with the entire board. When the ordering from Dawn here is quite good. So now the Squirrel will get the second Soul of the Forest as well.
Small plays there that really make a big impact. It's just maximizing the board state. And now Blood Trail very quickly has to work out whether he wants to commit a Warpath, but it would only be a 2 swing Warpath, if you want to phrase it like that. So it wouldn't actually do that much. You might have to go for Dynomatic here.
Light the fuses!
And this could, in most outcomes, just create way more treants.
And it didn't even do much, as you can see.
Actually,
it's like...
it might have been a positive outcome for Blood Trail there that he didn't clear the Vargoth, because that would have spawned 2 more treants on it. And then any one board buff would be quite scary for him.
It would, but it's a Vargoth.
That's
and
true.
What if Dawn just plays cards this turn, or spells, should I say specifically? Instead, he has gone for the Sea Giant, so at least it's not getting Vargoth value. But this trade means Vargoth's safe for another turn, unless Blood Trail commits removal. And there isn't really removal that deals with the Vargoth and the Sea Giant is the problem here, because Blood Trail is not running executes. So there isn't even Warpath execute, and that's just, gonna go for it.
This is the first time I've seen the Sea Giant and Floop interaction, to be honest, but Don had the option at one point there to play a 0 mana 3/4, which seemed like a pretty good deal, but I suppose he's saving it for the Snip Snap later on, so that he has something solid to do on turn 7 guaranteed, and then roll into the Forest Aid turn. And Blood Trail already faced with this awkward board, which the Token Druid needs to develop in order to challenge the Warrior, which is something tall and as well as a little bit of width.
And this is really nuts, isn't it? Because next turn could even just be Mecharoo, Snip Snip, and then into one big minion. So even if the Sea Giant's killed, which it probably doesn't die this turn, just obviously we've got to see what Blood Trail does, then you just have another big minion and it's a mech. So it can't be Dynamatic either for an easy kill. It's actually kind of nutty.
Yeah.
I'm being brought round to Token Druid for the first time since rotation.
Yeah. Blood Trail here, he's looking at the Skater bot, and popping the Vargoth here means that any board buff is now very, very threatening. Oh, wow.
Ooh.
I'm kind of in favor of catching a Savage Roar while you can get the 10 damage.
Is that 24? So it put Blood Trail to 12. Well, the good thing is there a reason to do anything else this turn? If you Savage Roar, put him to 12, well, there's actually the Forest Aid the turn after.
Yeah,
he can still play these minions, of course, because he can play this and Savage Roar.
Exactly.
But I don't see the reason not to Savage Roar. He's going to go for a bigger Snip Snap instead.
Okay.
But the problem is a Brawl can dramatically reduce your board size down, and Blood Trail does run 2 of them.
But I guess Donna is thinking even if a Brawl comes out, he's still most likely going to end up with 4 1/1s. And he could have the option to Forest Aid if he sees a Warpath alongside that Brawl. And if he doesn't, he could use the Savage Roar still for 10 damage on the 4 1/1s.
And I guess through Brawl, if either of the big guys wins, fine. Like, Dawn's actually probably not too upset.
Yeah.
So 2 out of 5 outcomes are actually just fine.
I mean, Dawn just set up a catch-22 situation for Blood Trail, and Blood Trail doesn't even have the Brawl in hand to possibly answer that. And even if he did, Dawn's got the contingency plan. It's pretty amazing how he was able to curve out.
Yeah.
Just from sticking the Vargoth.
Yeah, it's huge. And the Sea Giant coming in clutch, right? And this is why I really like Sea Giant and Druid. And honestly, one of the reasons why I think Druid was not working that well for Chonsu, because Chonsu wasn't running Sea Giants, right? And it's just, you're just missing that one big just threat in itself.
13 plus 6 is 9. That
Well, there's a swipe as well.
It's 19. Yeah, that looks like lethal to me.
It really does. There's the Savage Roar. The swipe as the extra damage from hand as well. And that is going to do it. That was just impressive. Double warp. We started this game by saying Blood Trail has every card in his hand that he needs to just clear out Druid. But Snip Snap, the new legendary that everyone has, you just get it by logging in, by the way. So if you've not logged in and got it yet, literally just log into Hearthstone. It's that easy.
Too.
Yeah, it's golden. It's easy. But with the help of Snip Snap and also the Sea Giant, it was absolutely huge. And when you start to pile some of these power plays, it gets to the point where outside of making tokens, all the other cards in your deck are big power plays and threats that your opponent has to deal with. So it's pretty scary, pretty impressive list for me. It's only one game I've seen, but still.
Aside from that, I would say just the Vargoth sticking onto 4, and despite the Soul of the Forest not hitting too many minions, the fact that it was stacked so that the Vargoth had 2 on it, and then 2 smaller minions had 1 Death Rattle on it, that just created such an awkward board state that the Warrior was not equipped to deal with. So very strong showing from Dawn there, and we were ragging on Token Druid a lot last week, but maybe for this week might be the nuts.
It might be, but I think it's because in Asia Pacific we've got a lot of warriors over here this week. But I think with the beefier builds, especially with the help of Snip Snap, like I said, it's like a 1-card either board fill or big guy creation, and the Sea Giants, there are states where Warrior just doesn't have enough damage in the right shapes to actually deal with the board. Obviously, Vargoth on 4 landing into a Soul of the Forest on something is fantastic and awkward to deal with for any single class in the game. But still, you build your deck to do those things. There wasn't even really the flute used, so it's to any kind of extreme level that I'm sure it could be in the deck if you go Vargoth again. So you get double spells, which would be insane. But I believe both players are sticking to their primary list. We're going to be going straight into the game as soon as possible. And this is interesting to me, though.
I would agree.
Don's sticking on his primary list, which I do like the list. I like it. But his tertiary deck has double Tending Tauren, a Tree Speaker, and 2 Force of Nature.
On paper, it looks like this is the deck to beat Warrior, because we saw from Chonsu last week, and I would classify him as a Token Druid expert by now, having brought it for 2 weeks.
0-4 Token Druid expert?
I mean, a Token Druid loyalist, let's call it
there we
that.
go, that's better.
And the fact that he switched to his tertiary when he was faced with the Bomb Warrior matchup makes me think that the trees are meant to deal with the bombs, but Don's saying, no, I'm going to stick with the mechs, and I guess maybe this type of sideboard is meant for a different matchup we're just not accounting for, because the meta has changed a lot, guys. People are considering things like Murloc Shaman. Like we can see from Don's secondary list, he's got Hungry Crabs in there, but that's not actually been into the field. So what people are actually bringing in their specialist lineups is not necessarily meant for just what we see this week.
Yeah, exactly. Because one thing, we mentioned the lack of Paladin Holy Wrath style in Asia Pacific this weekend, but for me, I'm a little bit surprised that no one just tried the Get 'em Mech Paladin, where you just stack a ton of mechs up and go, because of the help of just certain cards being buffed and added in. It makes the deck pretty powerful, but also a bit one-dimensional. So we've seen a lot of players tech into their sideboards the silence effects from Spellbreakers, Iron Cowls, and so on. But Bloodtrail doesn't have any of that anyway. He's just happy that his warrior can get the job done regardless. My worry is he had a really good hand. Well, both players had good hands, and Dawn won. So if your reliance is on you having a good hand and your opponent not having a good hand, well, that's a scary thing if you're relying on that to win you a game.
Yeah, I do think it's oversimplifying it a little bit, because the general good hand from Token Druid is something like Whispering Woods into board buff, which is what the good hand from Warrior can directly counter with just one card like Warpath. But it was that really the Vargoth, I think, that was the X factor from the Druid, in which the Warrior does not have a direct answer except a shield block on curve, which a shield slam, sorry.
Yeah.
You saw that Bloodtrail had the shield block, but not the answer for the high health minion.
Yeah, I think what was missing from, or one of the issues is the brawl, or the lack of brawl, because if Vargoth, even if he hadn't have sold the forest twice with the Vargoth, if he had done any other buff, well, Warpath wouldn't have done enough damage to clear the board anyway, so it was a rough same issue to compound it. But let's just go straight into game number 2. Both players on exactly the same deck, so primary for both. And Dawn getting off to a decent start again. This Acorn Bearer is just such a sick card for turn 1, because even if it's cleared, you gain tokens to play, and if it's not cleared, it's pushing to a turn.
Yeah, it's really great, especially since it also has synergy with cards like Whispering Woods, because once it's cleared, then you get more cards in your hand to buff that card. And Dawn choosing to play off-curve the Mekaru instead of going for hero power, which I like a lot, because he's got buff cards in hand.
And now this is a bit of a tricky turn here. Dawn has to either choose to deal with this Alec or not. If he does, though, it's either a hero power or a coin swipe. Both of those don't feel fantastic.
Yeah. I'm kind of looking at Forest Aid and Go Face, but again, I don't have that much experience on this deck. But he's actually going for the Soul of the Forest here, and I think this is a nod to having the Blessing of Ancients in hand, because once Bloodtrail starts dealing with these minions, Dawn can do something similar to what he did last game, which is play out a squirrel and then buff the board.
Yeah, it looks like that's going to be the case. The Wrench Caliber from Bloodtrail is helping him really keep a better handle on this game than the previous one, obviously without Archmage Vargoth. The damage is much easier to deal with, and also the double benefit of shuffling in more bombs.
So Dawn here, I think the draw of the second Blessing of Ancients is what made this turn very clear to him. I was thinking maybe he could try and take it slow and go for a hero power clear there. But I think with this many board buffs, if you don't use them right away, you're going to end up in a situation which many Token Druid players are familiar with, which is all the buff cards in hand and no board to buff. So I like that he catches it out there and not being too greedy.
And yeah, when he's effectively got 4 Blessing of Ancients in hand, he's like, just cast them when you can, just get the value. Already though, this is looking much better for Blood Trail. And
Yeah.
just having the weapon locked in so you can get the double swings out of it. And when you've got this kind of weapon live, it's almost guaranteed to kill 2 minions in Token Druid outside of the Giants. So it's looking pretty good. This is where it dries up a little bit, Blood Trail's hand, but Omega Assembly can be used early game. It really isn't something you need as value in this matchup. You just need to focus on not getting killed.
Quite good draw for Dawn off the top there, having something to buff onto the board, but Blood Trail has just been drawing answer after answer, and it's not even the wide clears that he might have needed for something like a Whispering Woods board, but just the individual minions and weapons that can get rid of 1 minion at a time. It's the perfect answer for the type of hand that Dawn has at the moment. Can even magnetize the Ziliax onto the Rover here.
I wonder whether you don't. I guess you get the heal.
Yeah,
I was wondering whether the multiple attacks was worse since the Ziliax trades into one anyway, but the Ziliax would get traded into by the 2-3, which is the break point, I guess.
Right.
But you don't always want to magnetize Ziliax, is my point overall, but this time looks pretty good.
Yeah, it can be something you do out of habit, and it's good to see that Blood Trail hesitated for a minute to see if it was really better, but I think in that case it made a lot of sense because the 1-3 wouldn't have been able to kill a minion on its own. And now Blood Trail is basically up to full health again and done. Nothing to do that's great on turn 7, but at least he's got the Forest Aid into another board buff coming up for later.
Oh, 2 Clockwork Goblins is actually pretty sick.
Yeah.
Blood Trail can always go for the Omega Assembly first anyway, if he wants to, but just having just 2 minions to throw out against Token Druid when Dawn only has 1 sitting on the board right now is actually pretty nuts.
My question here is whether he wants to rip the Omega Assembly for less value. He already played the first one, and it's getting to that point in the late game where Blood Trail has had a very, very clean and smooth early game that now he's probably thinking the way I lose here is if I don't have enough answers for things like the Forest Aid later on in the game. So
Okay.
I like that he holds on to the Omega Assembly. Just the 3-3s here challenge the 2-3 really well, and he can probably just go for 1 more answer per turn and then roll into turn 10 and get the full value off of that.
Yeah, you know what? I guess with this play as well, he can always reevaluate next turn and say, oh, well, maybe I just cast Omega Assembly next turn if he's in dire need of something to do. But yeah, I think you're right, actually. Holding on here I think just feels a little bit better. Shield block, not half bad. With a shield slam, can kill off this giant with the help of a Clockwork Goblin. And even equip the Wrench Caliber.
Yeah, it works out quite
Ooh,
cleanly with
yeah.
that draw. I was going to say, does he really want to spend 7 damage with the armor up and then 3 damage into it? But now he's got something to do with his mana and then deal the perfect amount of damage into the Sea Giant.
Oh, I meant to yeah. And to just not need to float.
Exactly, because he's got the Wrench Caliber. So
that's pretty
Blood Trail, I think, is feeling pretty confident right here. And he's actually going for clearing off the mechs, I believe.
Yes.
I was looking at clearing off the 2-3 with your 3-3 and then the Squirrel, but doing it this way denies Snip Snap having charge.
Yeah, it's going to be a...
Oh, okay, never mind.
So, I guess it denies the board refill from having Snip Snap. Because if he just stacks Snip Snap onto the mech with Death Rattle, then if he kills it, the board fills. Whereas now it's just slightly less. I don't know. I think I would have liked to see the mechs completely cleared.
It's quite close, yeah. But yeah, now Blood Trail, he has this Brawl to answer the first Forest's Aid. Oh, and now he can snip. I wonder if he wants to just play 3 separate Snip Snaps.
I think so. Because he can kill with this Wrench Caliber. So the problem here is you might think, oh, just Brawl. Well, if he brawls, he knows there's a second one coming down, so he's in exactly the same spot, but -1 Brawl. So I think I like triple Snip.
Yeah, I quite like that too.
Is he stacking it? Huh.
So I think what the stack plays around is Dawn having a single buff, and then he can like double trade. He can value trade over the separate Snip Snaps. In which case your Brawl gets worse because you already have your Death Rattles onto the board.
Sure.
So I kind of like the 1 stack and 1 separate, because it disincentivizes Dawn from trading onto the stacked one, in which case your Brawl gets rewarded later on, I think.
Interesting, because all I was thinking was if the trades happen, then all your tokens just kill off the minions anyway. So I guess it's which one you're leaning to, right?
Yeah.
This is adding up to a
these
lot of
are
damage. Though,
really complicated turns, but these guys are playing at lightning pace. I don't mean this turn from Dawn is complicated, because this makes a lot of sense. But the last one from Blood Trail, I think there was quite a lot he could have considered. So now he can rep the Omega Assembly for full value.
Oh, brawl into the underpowered steam. Unpowered.
Yeah,
Oh, sorry, underpowered. Needs a buff. That's next on the buff list, Blizzard.
Okay, you heard it here first, guys. And I was going to say Harvest Golem is pretty much strictly worse than Snip Snap. Not strictly, but very close. Now, gets to fill up the board and probably play this underpowered Steam bot.
I mean,
Such a bully, Raven. This card is so good here. It's gonna like heal him for 9.
if it was that good, it would be in the deck.
But it's good here. Yeah, but the real problem for Blood Trail is he doesn't quite have the cleanest answer for the next Forest Aid. Although he's got a ton of minions, he's just hoping he doesn't see the other swipe here.
Yeah, I mean, Blood Trail can go aggressive now. Outside of there being a swipe, next turn, Blood Trail can just trade one minion in, play Boom Reaver. Whatever minion it summons has Rush, so he can take down something himself, and then set up lethal, basically. And this is the power of Snip Snap and why you see mechs in more token druids now, because suddenly there's just something that can kill this 0-9. Which is pretty incredible. And now it's all down to Blood Trail to defend against, you know, just a 9-12.
There's still quite a few bombs left in the deck because there was double Wrench Caliber played and double Clockwork Golem, so Blood Trail is, I think, feeling like he might want to put Dawn at 10 at least so he gets to that break point. It's not like he's dealing with this 9-12.
I was going to say, if he went face with everything, he only puts him to 6, which is an infuriating health to put him to. But I think he might have to drop this Boom Reaver. Oh, he's not going to? Huh.
The Boom Reaver, I don't think there are any natural taunts left in the deck because Ziliax has been played, so I don't think the Boom Reaver would have actually helped him defend against this 9-12. Instead, he goes wide on the board to try and answer the next threats that Dawn puts down. But I'm not sure, maybe the Boom Reaver, it gets traded on board by the 9-12, so if your plan is to try and stick something, and I think he had a pretty clear read that there was no swipe last turn, then this board state is maybe a little bit better against that. Players very tense here, being forced to trade because Blood Trail put just enough to threaten lethal
now
there.
there's 1 damage away from lethal.
Yeah.
Oh,
wow.
Mega Devastator.
So between that and Shield Slam, he can clear quite a lot of this, and because of the board space, Dawn won't get all of the 1/1s. From the Snip Snap.
Yeah, so here he will want to Omega Devastator the Snip Snap Microbot first. And now it gets really funny because it's like, how many do you trade versus how much do you try and set up lethal?
I guess he can be aware of the Savage Roar breakpoints. So him being at 16 here, the maths, it's too quick for me, Raven.
They are playing awfully quickly.
So if the maximum he can trade off is just 1 more of these Treants, in which case...
2 more, right? Because he has the
Harvest Golem. Yeah, the Harvest Golem. So in that case, there will be still 4 left on board, and then Savage Roar is another 6, plus the Hero Power is 10, so he'd actually be safe. If he doesn't trade, though, then I think he's dead to Savage Roar.
He would have been safe from 3, right? Because it would have been 12, 14, 15 with Hero Power, so it would have been Savage Roar plus a buff would have killed him.
Yeah,
so
right,
he could have pushed a little bit more damage, but that would have been a little bit more risky because here it would be 10. It would only be 13 if it was Savage Roar plus 1 buff.
Right.
So I think this is much safer, way more often than it is threatening or setting up lethal by putting 2 more damage. You already have lethal set up anyway, outside of a Hero Power.
Looks good. Some quick maths from Blood Trail there, and he did play around 2 cards instead of just 1, and managed to not give up a winning position anyway. And for Dawn, now we see that he's got no choice but to refill here, I think, and probably leave the Devastator up. I don't think he can afford to give up the Savage Roar.
Free your mind
And from the Warrior, I don't think there's any burst from hand left because Ziliax was played and double Wrench Caliber as well. So I don't actually see a reason that Dawn needs to trade here unless I'm missing something. Because something like Weapons Project would give him armor anyway.
Yeah, well, it would be a magnetized minion from Omega Assembly, right?
Both were used, but yeah, he hasn't seen this last one, so it could be that, yeah.
Oh, okay.
Wow, this is a really tense spot here. If he plays the Boom Reaver, I don't see anything that he particularly wants to rush that could also keep him safe. At most, it could clear one more minion, which doesn't seem too relevant in the face of Savage Roar. Okay, so if he clears 6 worth of damage, which is the most given that the Boom Reaver gets something big. Or maybe he just won't do it because I'm wasting all my time considering all these things when the players can get it.
Yeah, I mean, the thing here basically is this is one of the scrappiest endings of a game. Was that second Savage Roar?
And I don't think he needed it, did he? Or,
I didn't count, but it doesn't matter because the game's over. Second Savage Roar definitely seals the deal no matter what. But yeah, that was such a scrappy game, and it's definitely one where I'm not saying anyone made dramatic misplays or anything to that extent, but I feel like that game is definitely one you can watch back and think, oh, what if I did this?
Yeah.
And how would have this just changed the way the game was played out? Boom Reaver could have come down earlier on turns where there wasn't as much done, and again, I'm not saying Boom Reaver was correct, but it would have put 2 minions on the board, and one of them's quite large, minimum one of them's quite big. Yes, there's one who get rush and maybe smaller, but maybe there was a potential card draw he could have gotten or anything else that would have helped out. So tons of questions there for that one.
Yeah, I think at the very end there we saw Blood Trail play really fast, but I think he did make the right call in the end because even if he pulled something from the Boom Reaver that was able to remove 1 more minion from Dawn, I think he was still dead to 1 Savage Roar. So in that case there was no point playing around it, and instead he tried to get the lethal by putting another bomb into the deck, and there are quite a few for Dawn at that point. So it was a really close game. I'm just shocked at how fast it played out. I guess they did a lot of practice and have already memorized all the damage cutoffs.
Yeah, and Dawn with that going up to 6-1 so far, only dropping 1 match all throughout Grandmasters, and also probably annoyed Chansu with Dawn just rocking up with Druid and be like, yeah, 2-0. It's just as easy as that, isn't it? But that's it for match number 1 is done for the day, and we have got Patra versus Glory coming up, which is going to be Warrior versus Rogue. We're going to step away while we set the matchup, so don't go anywhere. We'll be right back.
What's up, Hearthstone fans? Welcome to another episode of The Curve, where we draw the biggest headlines from this past weekend on Curve. I'm your host, TJ Sanders. Let's do this. There are no longer any undefeated players in the Asia-Pacific region. Shaxi, Dawn, and Flurry all suffered their first loss this weekend. In Division A, Alutemo leads the division with a 5-1 score. In the Division B, Shaxi leads the division despite experiencing his first loss to Tyler this weekend. None of the players have truly been able to dominate in either division, so expect to see continual changes to the top 3 spots in the coming weeks. Seiko continues to write history as he improved to 6-0, joining Phenomeno and Monsanto as the only undefeated players left in Hearthstone Grandmasters. Even better, he now sports a perfect 12-0 game record while piloting a different class each week. He's defeated everyone in his group with the exception of Orange, and we'll see if he can continue his dominance heading into week 4. Chinese player Yu Yi has been cleaning up in the Hearthstone China ecosystem. He recently won the Xiamen 2019 Gold Open and is the only player to have won the Gold Open 3 times. His team, World Elite, currently sits on top of the standings for the Gold Team Championships with a 10-4 record. To find out more about the Hearthstone competitive scene in China this year, you can visit the website gold.blizzard.cn/GTC. Week 4 of Grandmasters will see the addition of the new Snip Snap Legendary and 18 unique card buffs. While players seem most excited about Crystology and Necromechanic, other potentially archetype-shifting cards such as Stormbringer and Luna's Pocket Galaxy are also up for evaluation. I'm personally excited for extra arms because you can never have enough arms. In this week's meta moment, we want to highlight Rogue. Despite many of the players saying that Rogue was unfavored in the Warrior matchup, Rogues beat Warriors 55% of the time across all regions. 1/3 of all players brought Rogue, even though it recently suffered nerfs to Prep and Raiding Party. Different variants of the class introduced some intense mind games, but the real winner was Muzzy, as he brought home 2 clean W's on his birthday weekend with good old-fashioned tempo Rogue. If you missed any of the Grandmasters action, you can check out the VODs on our YouTube page, youtube.com/Hearthstone Esports. And don't forget to follow us on Twitter, Facebook, and YouTube. That's it for us. Week 4 of Grandmasters resumes this weekend, so we'll see you in the tavern.
Match number 2 coming right up for you guys here in the Asia Pacific Grandmasters. We've got Glory versus Patra coming up, and it is going to be Rogue versus Warrior. So this is a matchup I feel like we're going to be seeing fairly often over the course of this weekend. Let's take a look at Patra's deck though, as she is going back onto the Warrior deck, which she's brought a couple of times now to Grandmasters. And I feel like I'm leaning towards talking about this every weekend, but I do feel like Bomb Warrior is just the most overall solid and consistent pick, or at least it has been every week.
I did end up agreeing with you last week, and for this week I definitely agree as well. It's just safe knowing that Holy Wrath Paladin has received a huge buff. This deck still is great against it because it kind of punishes that game plan of drawing too many cards because it can die to the bombs. And it's not like Bomb Warrior has a bad matchup against Mage these days. They've now found the right ways to tech for it, and I do think its strongest weakness is Mid-Range Hunter, but Mid-Range Hunter I think also waned a bit in popularity now that people have found better ways to build Rogue and counter that. And Bomb Warrior also beats Rogue. It just seems like it has the most good matchups out of all the decks right now.
It really does, yeah. And just a quick highlight there, the usual list style, I would say, Double Brawl is important to note, but Ironbeak Owl as a small nod to all of the mech decks that are being used. For example, imagine an Owl in that last game where there was the huge Snip Snap. Well, no, you're back to a 2-3 again, friend. So for that, Patra's list is fairly standard. The Owl might come in useful a little bit, but let's take a look at Glory's Rogue, because Rogue has had the journey of a lifetime this rotation, this year of Hearthstone, is being undoubtedly one of the strongest classes we have ever seen in Hearthstone. And then it took some nerfs, and then I feel like every week the players are deciding a new way to play Rogue. There are people jumping on the literally pogo bandwagon, and then also players who are going, nope, you just ignore all that, go full aggro, and then there's play that's somewhere in between. But I feel like Glory here more or less is sticking to as standard a Rogue list, and with a slight aggressive twist on it as possible.
Yeah, he did bring Tempo Rogue last week as well without the Burgle package, but I think there's a bit of an alteration to his list now where he's got Fan of Knives in the primary and Hench Clan Thug. I don't remember if he had the Thugs there in the primary, but now he's got still the one Waggle pick, and it's just kind of sticking to his guns here because it performed quite well for him last time, and Rogue is still in a pretty strong spot, I would say, especially if you're expecting people to bring more Mage because of the Pocket Galaxy buff. In that aspect, though, I think Patra had a pretty good read. She might have been able to get one on Glory, and I think her other opponent is also on the Rogue, so the Warrior Bring is actually great for her. And you mentioned Ironbeak Owl as being great against all these new mech decks that might be popping up. It's also got the added benefit of being great against Edwin Van Cleef, which is oftentimes just the one weakness of Bomb Warrior.
It is, yeah, and just to know as well, Glory, not really any silence, but Rogue has much less of a need to, because he is running double sap, which again, just as much against mech decks. Well, oh, you built a big mech, boom, back in your hand, now it's the small one again most of the time, so still the double sap from Glory. I feel like overall this is just a fairly consistent Rogue package. But yeah, nothing too surprising even in the secondary or tertiary lists, so to speak. But mentioning it of Patra's other opponent, who is going to be Shaxi later this weekend, another Rogue. Shaxi's brought a really weird Rogue that frankly I don't understand.
Yep, I
agree. It might, but Shaxi probably knows, well, definitely knows more than me about it, but maybe that list has a better matchup versus Warrior because of the sheer value, so I don't know how easy that matchup, this might be the easiest matchup for Patra here because the deck's straightforward, you know what it's going to do, so you can just beat it with the expected things that Warrior has.
It's true, and we've seen certain Bomb Warriors cutting the Weapons Project and Harrison package during the weeks when Rogue was still freshly nerfed and people didn't quite know how to build it, but now that it's kind of had its resurgence in popularity, popularity. Now we're seeing the Bomb Warriors put back the weapons project, or at least the one of like Patra's running, and she's also got Harrison.
Okay, let's kick it off. Game number 1. Patra on the Warrior on the top and Glory on the Rogue on the bottom. Patra's opening hand looks pretty good to me, Gia.
Yeah, it would be a pretty easy keep against Mage just to have minions to curve out with, but I'm not quite sure if she wants to have things like Omega Devastator, where, you know, playing a 4-mana 4/5 against Rogue is not the greatest thing to do because they can very easily clear it with their dagger and something like Eviscerate. So I like the mulligan from Patra here. Gets a 1-drop, very rewarded.
Yeah, keeping Dr. Boom is fantastic though in this hand, and also the Clockwork Goblin in a slightly different way. It's just 1, it shuffles the bomb in, and 2, it just helps take down the turn 3 plays from Glory as well, or the 3 drops, I'll say, not necessarily turn 3, of course.
And already Glory is disincentivized from playing just the Cable Rat on 2 because it will get eaten up by this Eternium Rover. Not sure if Glory wants to expend a backstab to deal with this. It might be that he just daggers up and then plays a 4/4 Cleave next turn. Not too great for him here.
Could make it 6 if you just throw the prep.
Sure.
It's definitely tricky though. How the game plan becomes undone when your opponent actually plays 1-drops is so funny to me. Because there aren't that many 1-drops in the game right now, right? Like, or ones that are this difficult to deal with. But yeah, the second just an awkward 1-drop comes down, you're like, ah, my whole game plan, gone.
I know. I mean, it's not even just the fact that the Rover gets free armor from dealing with the Cable Rat. It's the fact that if Glory plays the Cable Rat, then Patra will almost definitely trade, and then he cannot play backstab on it, and suddenly he doesn't have an answer for this 1/2 minion, which the more it gains armor, the more it powers up the Shield Slam, which can conversely deal with Edwin.
It's just going all the way down the rabbit hole if you play the Cable Rat into this. I am very surprised at that play though. I honestly thought Patra was going to coin out the Elic just to start steamrolling. 1, the tempo gain she's got by having the 2 minions down on the board. Also, you still gain the double bombs from the Clockwork Goblin in the following turn as well, unless the Elic is dealt with. And with Glory not running the Burgle package, it's much less likely to be dealt with because there's no Vendetta coming out of nowhere.
I would agree that it looks strange, but in this particular situation, I think it works out for her because that means if she had played the 3-drops, either of them would have been eaten up by this Eviscerate and she'd be left in the same position having to deal with the Van Cleef. Now that she's sitting on the coin still, she might be able to have the mana for something like a shield block to answer this.
Funnily enough though, there would have been enough armor to be able to armor up Shield Slam if the Elic was played. So it's kind of it's just a funny situation, isn't it? And it's definitely a tough choice. I think I normally just play aggressively with any deck. So I think it's why I always lean towards just coin out more minions, go. Patra now has to work out what the plan is. She does have Militia Commander for next turn, which is good. So maybe this Clockwork Goblin is just going to be enough. You take 8, but then you have the 8 total damage next turn with the Militia Commander and the Goblin, because you have just seen your opponent use a lot of resources to get this Van Cleef out.
The problem with this is that no matter what minions she plays, it gets answered by the Waggle pick, and instead she's going to preemptively use her armor before it gets shaved to guarantee that the Militia Commander deals with the Edwin next turn. And I think this makes a lot of sense because there are no taunts in the Rogue deck aside from Ziliax. And nothing like Dread Corsairs that can protect the Edwin from the rushing minion, and there's also no way to heal the Edwin back up. Because had she played a 3-drop there, it would have gotten answered by this Waggle pick. Maybe that's me being results-oriented, but this seems like the safest way to guarantee that the Edwin gets cleared.
Yeah, it is, like you said, there's very, well, maybe not now, but yes, it is because, like you said, there are no taunts, and you can't kill a minion from hand, right? You know, you can't kill a minion that's not on the board. So having the Shield Slam is pretty good, especially if you take the thought path of, well, I'm never going to have more armor than this. So Shield Slam kind of never gets better, right? So
it had the benefit also of just still saving the coin for more flexible plays and maybe getting boom sooner. And I would amend my statement of Edwin not being able to get healed. It can get replayed, but man, that was a very fringe situation for sure.
It's pretty sick though that Glory managed to not only deny the follow-up on the Edwin, which Patra did flag, right? Patra pretty much can can just tell Glory she has a Militia Commander in hand, especially now after the Town Crier play. But not only doing that, but also keeping Edwin at an 8-8. It's not like sometimes you have to replay Edwin as like a 6-6 and be like, okay, it's not as good.
And now the interesting thing for Glory is that because he has that hard read in the Militia Commander, he'll probably want to waggle pick into the 3-4. And he also has this option of double trading the 1-1s into the 1-2 to also remove Patra's only other possible answer, which is Brawl. Barring something like Shield Block, Hero Power, and Coin Shield Slam, which is not even enough. So, and not to mention he's already seen the 1 Shield Slam. So he actually has a way to just guarantee that Edwin sticks. I guess there's also the Iron Beak Owl, but Patra would have played that if she had it in hand. Yeah.
You know what's really funny as well? If the Waggle Pick comes down, kills the Elic, the 2 1-1s trade in, then Glory can play the Shark, swing with the pick. Oh no, sorry, can swing with the pick, Shadow Step the Edwin if it lives, play the Shark, and then replay Edwin again. And I think that wasn't a bad idea to trade it all off. I do like your plan.
Yeah.
Glory shaking his head like he's unhappy.
Well,
Maybe he did want to consider the trades.
It was quite close. I mean, taking the 2 extra damage always seems good, especially since he's got a pick. But I feel like the only way he loses from here is to Brawl or just have dead draws for the next few turns when he's trying to get the rest of the damage rolling. So maybe he's thinking that perhaps he just needs to hold the game out for a little bit longer because he doesn't have that damage in hand yet. Granted, Patra doesn't even have the Brawl, and still no good way to answer this Edwin.
This is why Rogue is never that bad, because it can play Edwin Van Cleef.
Yep. 13 showing for Glory. If
1 mana.
It's lethal, right? Because whatever minion gets bounced, he can play.
Oh, the follow-up, yeah.
Yeah. He can play it cheapened and then combo off the SI7 agent.
That looks like it adds up to 2 to me. 2 damage from hand. Van Cleef gets played for the 3rd time. Why not? As a 2-2 this time. And that is going to be game. And Glory takes a quick game number 1 off the back of Van Cleef. And just off the back of, to be honest, a pretty cool play with that Shadow Step. Like, Patrick did sort of signify, or telegraph is the word I'm looking for, that she had the Militia Commander, which, yes, that was fine. Getting the damage in early with the Shield Slam was good, but it just meant that Glory then just had the information. It's like, well, you're setting up clearly a Militia Commander of some kind, or some kind of removal of around that health. Okay, I'll be able to just play this Shadow Step, go again. And that was just the nail in the coffin, and the Owl not being drawn was huge. Imagine if Owl was drawn in that game. It just looks completely different and probably would not be over right now.
Yeah, and we can go back and maybe look at whether coining out a 3 into 3 would have panned out for Patra, but honestly, there's so many different iterations of how that game works, and a lot of the time Rogue will just have their Eviscerate or their Waggle Pick, and then you playing a minion doesn't actually accomplish anything. But yeah, I have to say, pretty clean play from Glory there to just be able to identify that this Edwin was his win condition. He should heal it for at all costs, no matter how much value it costs in his hand.
Yeah, and as we get ready for game number 1, Patra is sticking on her primary deck, but Glory has moved to his secondary. So let's check it out and see some of the changes he has made, ready to take on Bomb Warriors. So break this secondary deck down for us.
Yeah, it is removing Backstab, Saps, and SI7 agents, all cards that notably are not great against Warrior because they are better against perhaps aggro. At least the Backstab and SIs are in the Saps you would rather have against Mage. But now he's including Geppetto Joybuzz, Chef Nomi, 2 schemes, and Harrison Jones. And the Jones is the one that, I mean, obviously it's there to deal with Waggle Pick, but the Geppetto and Nomi, along with schemes, seems super greedy to me and something that I've not seen in a very long time. But, just having Nomi's in a deck with Myra's just makes sense, I suppose.
Yeah, and for me, this is one of these worrying scenarios. I'll definitely get the stats for this very, very soon for you guys. It's something I'm interested in is how often a player changing to a secondary or tertiary deck after winning game 1 do they lose? Because I feel like it's a lot. I don't know why, but I feel like it's a lot. And the problem here is, I get what the secondary wants to do against a warrior deck, right? You pack more late game, you pack more value, and say, you can't remove all my threats because I just have too many threats. The cards don't exist, right? But after seeing game number 1, yes, Van Cleef pretty much carried the game, but in a deck where you're running Hench Clans, Van Cleef, the Shark, for just as well as it's a value card, it's also can be a highly aggressive card. And all the lack is, I always wonder, like, do you not just want more threats in there, or maybe even more consistent threats, as opposed to taking out some cards and then adding in super late game stuff, because you might not even make it to the late game in a reasonable fashion, which means having all of these cards ready for the late game war versus warrior. Like, well, warrior can beat you up sometimes, and maybe that's just too slow. I don't know. It worries me.
I'd agree. I mean, I've not tested this particular build too much, but I will say that even though it looks kind of interesting that he left the Fan of Knives in, which seems like it would maybe in theory be a weaker card against Warrior compared to something like Sap, I think the game plan for this deck is to just make sure you get to Myra's immediately and try to lock out the game going too long that the Warrior can out-pressure you. And if you consistently can get Myra's and then land a Chef Nomi or even an Evil Miscreant and then scheme that, perhaps it is just enough to get there, but I'm definitely interested to see how this plays out.
Well, we're about to, as we go straight into game number 2. Patra currently down 0-1 versus Glory. As we just said, Glory has moved on to his secondary deck, and Patra is on her primary. Just a quick note, his secondary looks much more built to take down Mage with Super Glider, an additional Devastator, but also a Korkron Elite and a Snip Snap. And then there's also some extra silence packed into the tertiary deck for Patra, much more likely to take down those big mech decks that we've talked about, but are not really being played, at least in Asia-Pacific Grandmasters.
Yes. And the package of Myra's and Scheme, definitely there are just a few select targets that you would want to scheme after you've run out of the deck. And those are particularly, I think, the Heist Baron Togwaggle, or perhaps the Leroy in the deck if you get the treasure that makes them all cost 0 when you draw them, and that does a lot of burst damage towards the end. We were seeing that combo as early as Worlds, but it didn't quite pan out every single time, purely because, as you mentioned, sometimes the warrior can just pressure you.
Sometimes you just die.
Yeah.
And it's kind of nuts. And also, it requires such a specific setup that Hearthstone's a little bit crazy at the moment, so you can't reliably do the same thing every single game. So it doesn't happen too often.
Patra here, I'm sure what she is noting for the late game is to be able to hold on to at least one brawl for the Chef Nomi. But the thing is, Glory also has those shadow steps, so you can do that thing that you do against Warrior, which is just Nomi into Nomi into Nomi, and they won't have the third brawl.
Funnily enough, there's also a certain level of counterplay there, because the second your opponent Myra's and your Bomb Warrior, you could hold a couple of bomb generations and you put them straight in, and already they take minimum 11 because of fatigue hitting in as well.
Patra, pretty easy militia commander here. Gets a clean kill on the Hench Clan Thug. Yes, it dies to the dagger, but at least she's able to preserve the Eternium Rover here. I would definitely prefer to see the commander to the Wrench Caliber and double trade here. Yeah,
at worst, you can always Wrench Caliber the turn after, right? It's to kill another similarly sized minion, it's definitely not bad. And as you said, you do save the Rover, which means more armor, which means potentially not dying to a Van Cleef.
Yeah. Everything circles back to Edwin.
Yeah. Just ask Staz.
Oh, yeah. And the 1-3 also has that added benefit of, you know, maybe the chip damage doesn't look relevant now, but later on it could be once we get to that Myra's situation at the late game. And also, it can deal with things like lackeys and evil cable rats very cleanly for Patra.
I mean, honestly, if Eternium Rover hits twice and you Wrench Caliber face once, well, guess what? You've done 5 damage, which puts your opponent down to a lower multiple of 5, which means bombs are more likely to kill them off, so...
Glory looked pretty stressed there to see the militia commander hangs his head down, but I think he's still in a decent spot sitting on Miscreant, although maybe the turn is just Life Drinker to challenge the 1-3. The thing is, if he wants to combo the Miscreant, there's not a clean way to deal with the 1-3 just yet, unless he wants to eviscerate.
Prep Abyss. Well, you've got to work out, right? Does Prep Abyss now... You do have to expend the resources, but one, you get off the Miscreant, which is very, very good. But also, is this Eternium Rover going to do, or is more of a threat than the damage you deal with Eviscerate to, say, face? Like, or a minion, maybe? It's tough, right?
It is tough to say. And Glory here with this play was clearly hoping that there was no Wrench Caliber, but we see it is available for Patra as a very clean kill on the 3-3. It is a little bit off curve, so maybe there's some consideration for Dynomatic, but I quite like getting the clean kill, equip the weapon, and then still have the Dynomatic for added removal later on.
Yeah, it's a tough one, right? Because you might need to, if you don't Dynomatic this turn, you might need to Dynomatic next turn, and if you're doing that, you need to hold the weapon to try and get more value out of the Elic, potentially. So I think the Dynomatic just for an extra minion would look a little bit nicer to me, but don't get me wrong, this is still an absolutely decent play. Like you said, it's a clean kill, you've got the weapon locked up for the following turn, so this is fine. It just worries me that there's missed potential with the Elic if Patra's forced into something next turn.
I don't think she's necessarily concerned with getting the full value off the Elic so much as the upside of the Dynomatic being that you get a 3-4 body on the board, which I think is very relevant in this type of tempo matchup. But I do think that the Dynomatic can more often clear more things than just the 3-3, whereas the Wrench Caliber, I think that is definitely the ideal target for it because
Right.
there's no more SIs, so the best thing it can get a kill on is the Life Drinker, but I would say it is quite close, that decision.
Yeah, this is the worrying card, isn't it, for Dynomancer? Even nerfed to full health.
Oh, double Lucky Lackey.
If you go Miscreant into stuff, the Miscreant soaks so much damage, it's absurd, and there's a Myra's.
Yeah. Already ready to go with the Nomi and Shadow Step in hand. That could be bad news for Patra, especially since she's only got the one Brawl right now. Granted, there's some time to draw into the next one. But yeah, now the Dynomatic does nearly a perfect job of cleaning
Right.
this.
Oh,
So the decision for Patra there was whether it was worth, in all likelihood, leaving up a 1-1 Miscreant in order to save a weapon charge. But I wouldn't mind just seeing the full kill. That's unlucky, drawing the Myras as soon as you discovered one. But I don't think Glory minds too much because he's still got that killer Nomi combo coming up
yeah, this
in
is
a few turns.
it's one of those funny things, isn't it, where the Myra's now isn't for the big value hand, it's to just make that deck counter on the right say 0,
Yes.
which is when Nomi comes into play, of course. So the having two of and making your hand slightly less powerful because it's -1 card effectively is a little bit frustrating because it could be a different card in the deck, but not the end of the world. The Glory definitely picked the right choice from the Ethereal Lackey there.
So I'm thinking the turn starts with some Cable Rats. The hand is definitely still looking too heavy to be able to Myras, but maybe he's considering it just because, wow, just because turn 7, Nomi, and then turn 8, Nomi again. The upside of this is you are forcing Patra to have Brawl into Brawl exactly. If not, there's something like 36 damage, or possibly even the full 42 heading her way in the next 2 turns. And that is crazy. And Glory just going to eviscerate the Dynomatic and I guess just make sure that his fatigue counter is as safe as possible.
Yeah, because one thing he does have to be worried about is, like I said, if Patra starts shuffling bombs in, it's guaranteed damage every single time. There's no way to negate them,
Yeah.
apart from being on 10 cards, which Glory just isn't.
Yeah.
He made the choice not to be.
Notably, he didn't even draw a bomb off of the Wrench Caliber charges. How do you deal with Nomi here? I mean, she has Brawl, but this is a ticking time bomb for the next one, and I think she should have a very hard read on Nomi on 7. Maybe she doesn't have the read on Nomi on 8, but with the speed that Glory played that Myras, I would be very scared of even up to 3 Nomis.
I think if your opponent Myra's is like this, which is a terrible Myra's for value, you have to expect at least 1 Shadow Step.
Yeah.
Because you don't make that play with no Shadow Steps against Warrior. So you have to expect at least 1, and there needs to be some kind of plan here.
Yeah. The plan is draw the second Brawl. Well, the first one definitely coming out here. I think
So
4 or 5.
Patra needs to just go face and win
Yes.
the Brawl, right?
Yeah.
That's pretty much just the plan right now.
Yeah, and then drop an Elic on the top of it, I suppose. Maybe there's some merit for considering a hero power with the rover, but you need to be very aware of the damage cutoffs. Expecting the second Nomi next turn means that it's like 42 damage. I don't think the armor is relevant, or not more so than the Elic. being
No,
on board.
I think you need to kill them.
So in that case, the Elec is just a 3/4 body and also threatens bombs. Devastator first one out. You hate to see that if you're Patra, and it's the second brawler dream here, isn't it?
I don't, because the problem as well is now any minion you put down doesn't do anything. It either gets traded off, fine, or it hits face, which Glory doesn't care because he wins the next turn, unless it's exactly brawl.
Okay.
Also, well, there's...
I was going to say that the 1/3 sticking maybe gives her a little bit more time because the Warpaths can squeeze out more armor, but
it doesn't do enough, right?
Yeah.
There's no spell damage card in Patra's deck to help with the, you know, the Warpath tech for beating Nomi, because Nomi kind of fell off in popularity a little bit. This is just nuts. But this is why it's really funny that Glory packed in loads of late game value. And only to play an even more accelerated rogue game with the Myras. And that's just game.
Can she survive with a Zilliax just there to stop 2 hits?
So remember, the dagger will take... It'll only stop 1 minion hit, right?
Yeah.
And the problem is it only heals 3 anyway,
exactly.
so it's not even gaining that
There's
much.
still 36 after the 1 minion attack, and that would just be game. That is crazy. Just the Nomi on curve with the Shadow Step. There's just not much the warrior can do. And maybe I was wrong to criticize Glory for going for the Myras right there, because I guess he identified that the chances of her having double brawl this early on in the game are very low.
Well, you can see a couple of turns have gone by, and there's 16 cards in now with that draw, but there was, what, like 19 cards when you played Myras? Your opponent's not only drawn a third of their deck, it's unlikely they have double brawl. And also as well, there was still certain levels of value with the Cable Rats. Getting lackeys, which can then discover spells, which can maybe help Glory out as well, but Glory knows.
Exact lethal after she heals back up to 36, and there's 6 6/6s on board. That's a rough one.
Yeah, and it's a big one for Glory as well. He's currently sitting 3rd place in Division B, and he's going to be going to a 5-2 record after this match. So, of course, we don't know where everyone's going to land until the weekend is over, but Glory continuing to at least solidify a top 3 spot, or at least do his best to with a 2-0 victory. Is also going to help him out in some tiebreakers to a certain extent as well, but Glory's looking like he's doing it pretty fantastic there, and I don't know, it's really funny to me that the additional cards look like they slow the deck game down, but if you play like that, they actually make the game go faster. But the Shadow Step and Nomi in hand sealed the deal for Patra for me.
And to be fair, Glory did discover that first Myras, and he had that game plan in mind from the very second he had the option. It just so happened he drew the second one and played that one instead to give Patra less information, but he definitely was rewarded for going all in so early. But I still think that the deck building choice is maybe not ideal in this scenario, though it did very well pan out for him, and he played to that out, so kudos to him.
Yeah, so Glory takes down Patra on her Warrior to go to a 5-2 record. He's got Dawn a little bit later on this weekend, so he's going to have to take down that Druid. Might see those Fire Knives come in handy after all. But that's it for match number 2. We've got our feature match coming up, and it is going to be Samuel Zhao on the Hunter versus Shaxi on the Rogue. So don't go anywhere, we'll be right back with the feature match.
Available for a limited one-time purchase starting on June 3rd, the new Masters Bundle contains 10 Rastakhan Rumble Packs, 10 Rise of Shadow Packs, a new Stolen Thunder card back, and the Thunder King Shaman Hero. The Masters Bundle is available and giftable now through the Blizzard shop. With the Masters Bundle, you can add to your collection while also celebrating Hearthstone's vibrant esports scene.
Now the cards show me a thinker, so clever, but kind of a stinker. In a storm that's a raging, sits the last one I'm paging, a truly unusual thinker. All bots are now gonna go boom, but still, you shouldn't assume that I've made this selection on my own direction. No, indeed, let's be clear. I have brought you all here, and now you're all in. It is time to begin. The cards see a heart that is stony, and a totem that's all kinda bony. This witch in such danger will soon be no stranger, 'cause she's gonna be our new crony. We welcome you into this room, and we promise your enemies doom. Just one more who's coming. The last one I summon is a fella who makes things go boom.
大家好，我是曹祖林，然后我炉石的 ID 是 Samuel Sao， 然后大家可以追随我的 Facebook 粉丝专页。亚太区我最喜欢的选手就是那个汤，去年的世界冠军。我相信只要是台湾人最喜欢的选手都会是他。然后如果是整个大师赛的话，应该是刚刚拿下世界冠军的 Hunter S， 因为我之前也有好几次跟他交手的经验，感觉自己跟他是有差距的。他真的是很厉害的选手。对我影响最深刻的牌组应该是之前的快攻萨满，因为那时候算是我刚开始想要打都市电竞，然后刚开始希望打进季后赛的时候，然后那时候我天梯都是使用这套牌，然后也是因为我天梯那时候只够组出这套牌，所以我就一直玩。后来比赛也会带这个，然后它帮助我赢了很多比赛。希望大家可以支持我，多看我比赛，然后多看台湾人的比赛。希望下一个世界冠军也是我们，也是台湾人。
本名叫刘伟杰，然后游戏 ID 叫学习，然后我有 Twitch， 然后还有 Facebook。亚太区我最想遇到的选手是Surrender，去年看他在世界赛打得很好，真的很好，几乎没什么失误，所以我很期待跟他对战。然后我最不想遇到的选手是枪叔，因为他之前在某个比赛把我击败掉。我这一年的目标，希望还是能代表亚太区出去，就是参加那种最后的世界赛这样子。对我而言，成为大师的话，就是代表说，我在这款游戏中我被认可了。如果今天我失去了大师的资格，可能会很沮丧，可是我还是会想要把它抢回来。我会继续努力。
Versus Samuel Sao coming up as our feature match of the day, and it is going to be Hunter versus Rogue. Shaxi doing pretty good on Rogue, at least recently in Grandmasters overall, but let's take a look at the deck list themselves and see what's going on. Starting out with Samuel Sao's Hunter, looks like a fairly standard mid-range Hunter, maybe with the addition of that Owl just for some mechs.
Yeah, it does look a lot similar to what he brought last week, and I think he went 1-1 with it, both in the mirror. And now, realizing that Hunter is still probably in a good spot if you expect a field of Bomb Warriors, which there's a lot of Bomb Warriors in APAC. It seems like a pretty good meta call for me. He's also got the Rat Trap in there to kind of hedge a bit against Rogue, and running the double scale heights in the primary is definitely a shout out to that. And as you mentioned, the presence of the Owl gives him some flexibility to deal with these mech package decks, which no one ended really upbringing, but it was definitely a real threat going into the league. So I like the nod to those decks, as well as we mentioned previously, having the benefit of dealing with Edwin.
Yeah, you definitely have to have heads up for these decks. And funnily enough, most people don't like Owl in general since it got nerfed. Of course, when it was 2 mana, it was sick. But the one thing I do like about it, specifically Hunter and this style of Hunter, is that you draw it very consistently because of the way Master's Call draws unique beasts.
Yes.
Means that even if running 1, you actually draw it so consistently from the deck that it actually is super, super good, in my opinion at least. The problem with Samuel Zhao this weekend is he's brought a deck that does very well versus the massive field of Bomb Warrior. He is not against a Bomb Warrior this weekend. He has a Hunter Mirror against Blitzchung and Shaxi on his Rogue right now. So it was a good read and hit a lot of the field, but just not the targets he's actually against. Let's check out his enemy number 1 though. It's going to be Shaxi on this Rogue. And this...
Yeah,
I'm so confused. I feel like he forgot to put in a Pogo Hopper with this list.
I know, when I saw this list last night, I saw the Witchwood Pipers first. I got so excited. Are we going to see some Pogo action? But nope, it is Tempo Rogue with just Witchwood Piper, I suppose, to have some more card draw, because he's cut Myra's Unstable Element from the primary deck, which, I'm not going to lie, it looks very weird to me, Raven.
It does, and there's just... This feels like value Rogue. Because
Okay.
I personally have not seen a list like this that doesn't have the Pogo package. But for me, it's Blink Fox without Vendetta. So there isn't the Thief package in there. But there's a lot of cards that draw or generate a lot more cards.
Yeah.
And then there's the Shark, which can, with the help of these generation and card draw effects, make games go truly strange and be able to generate so many additional cards or draw into your deck so quick that although it might not have the strongest, minion for minion, like for like build, it just does so much stuff so consistently that maybe it just gets there, and it's really down to the pilot to get those decisions right. What spells you take from Ethereal Lackey, for example. When do you commit the Shark, and what kind of value do you want from the Shark? Do you want draw value with the likes of Novice Engineer, Witchwood Piper, and Blink Fox, or do you want some more damage with the help of Van Cleave, maybe some certain lackeys, and then also like Life Drinkers are in there for 6 burst effectively and 6 kill with a Shark. So it's a weird deck, but I think it's going to be very interesting to watch, because I feel like this deck may have the most different paths you can go down in terms of how it's played in any given game.
You call it a value rogue. In my notes, I had it as tempo rogue because that's what it says in the graphic that we had. I crossed it out, wrote value rogue, then I crossed that out and wrote created by rogue. That's what I'm going to call this. But you do bring up a very good point in that it is very unpredictable and makes it tough both for the pilot and for whoever is playing against it. And on top of that, it is just a rogue with waggle picks, which is good against Hunter.
Well, that's the funny thing as well about this deck. The deck runs still 2 waggle picks, a Leroy, Life Drinkers, and Shadow Steps. So you can still just kill people, because that's just enough damage against almost every class in the game. That's just enough damage to actually win. So it's kind of nuts, but let's see what actually happens here. Hunter, not the best history of dealing with Rogue, but this one, I honestly just don't know, so I'm kind of excited to watch this one play out.
Yeah, this is definitely an X factor for me, and we see the full keep there from Shaxi because he has got that early game curve of lackeys into Shark to make more lackeys and more spells.
Oh, even the waggle pick now as well.
Okay, the bright side for Samuel Tsao is he has Springpaw to deal with Cable Rat and possibly Deadly Shot to deal with a Shark on curve, should it have no minions accompanying it.
Now, if he gets a Hyena offer, which he didn't from that tracking, that would have been pretty nuts going forward, because Shaxi does not have a reasonable answer to a Hyena, especially when there are things to trade a Spring Paw into.
Yeah, and that tracking was unfortunate in the sense that no matter what he picks, the rest of it is gone, because the Owl is a one-of, and the Dire Frenzy, obviously, 2 copies of it, and Samuel Tsao is choosing to value the Dire Frenzy here, which makes a lot of sense, not just because the Owl doesn't have that many good targets outside of Edwin, it also just makes sense with his hand. He has double Spring Paw, and the Master's Call, once he gets it, if it's landing on a buffed Spring Paw, that's probably one of the best targets outside of just this Vicious Gilehide, I think, is the premier target, followed by Spring Paw in the Rogue matchup.
I think as well, one interesting thing about the tracking there for Samuel Tsao is that, yes, he only has 1 Dire Frenzy, but does he ever need 2 in this matchup? And then, yeah, he loses his Owl, but outside of exactly Van Cleef, there isn't tons of Owl targets. So if anything, I think it was not the best track in terms of what he got, but the best track in terms of throwing away stuff he doesn't need.
True.
And it makes his draws a little bit more consistent for this specific matchup right now, which is kind of cool, actually.
Yeah, and I definitely like the Scalehead on 2 play because it's not that likely it dies there because it's damaged, so you can't backstab it. He would need exactly Minion plus Rush Lackey or this 2 damage Lackey outside of doing something crazy like eviscerating it. And so there was a high likelihood of him being able to stick that for Dire Frenzy, which already puts the Hunter in such a strong position. Unfortunately for Samuel Tsao, Shaxi had a clean answer here, but we do see that he had to give up the Lackey to do that, so he could not go Lackey into Miscreant this turn, for example. But I think he'd be reasonably happy dropping a Shark if the next turn is like Novice and Miscreant, but the fact that there's a Misha makes it just so clean to Waggle pick here. You can just play 4 1-drops. Kind of like that. It's just pretty good against Rogue.
Yeah, Shaxi isn't running Fan of Knives.
Yeah,
so
for all the
safe.
weird stuff he's running, there's no Fan of Knives in there, unlike with Glory's list.
You need Fan of Knives when you have Novice Engineer and Witchwood Piper to draw your cards. There you go, on demand.
So Samuel Tsao holds back on the last Spring Paw there. I wouldn't actually have hated just playing the Timberwolf here, because I think the Spring Paw has more value as a Dire Frenzy target later on. Whereas the Spring Paw without Unleash in hand, I don't know, I just feel like having that board state makes things very awkward for Rogue to deal with. Granted, Spring Paw with Timberwolf is a pretty useful thing to be sitting on for removal. But yeah, now Samuel Tsao can go for Spring Paw, Dire Frenzy, value trade the 1/4 and get rid of the Novice with his Shimmerfly. Looks like a solid turn to me. Are you seeing any other options you like, Raven? Oh, of course, this is the better order.
Yeah, I mean, first off, you all, if the Shimmerfly is ever going to die due to a trade or whatever, you do that first, because that could change your whole turn. But I don't see a massive issue with that play, especially because it holds onto the coin, which is important now that there's Zul'jin. I think coin Zul'jin might be what Samuel Tsao needs to do here, because, again, this is what just is kind of blowing my mind about this Rogue, is that you look at the list and it's like, oh, this just does a load of not much. But Shaxi will always have stuff to do every single turn because of the combination of the volume of card draw and the relatively low curve of the deck. Means that you can play cards every single turn for the whole game and no matter what, pretty much, with this Rogue. And it's unlike these turns where Samuel Tsao has to find a turn with his hand, as opposed to Shaxi's like, oh, I have 50 different options this turn. Which one do I fancy now? So it's kind of sick that, like, a deck that, at least to me, with the help of a couple of powerful cards, of course, just does stuff every turn is actually very powerful.
Stuff Rogue, that's the new name for this. I've
Rogue.
changed created by Rogue. We're just gonna come up with...
There's about 18 different scribbles on the pad now of the Rogue name.
It's true. And Samuel Tsao, he took a very long time on that turn, and I think it's specifically because it always feels bad to Dire Frenzy before you have Master's Call in hand. So he's now thinking that because he made this play, the average draw off the top is less likely to be Master's Call. But I don't think he should be too mad if the average draw off the top is a 1-mana 4/4 Rush, generating another 1/1 with Rush. But maybe the generation of a second Deadly Shot kind of made him hesitate a bit more.
And this is... I agree. You might have to go for this tracking. And this is what I'm saying though. Shaxi played a Shark and 2 Lackeys and had a very good turn. even though he's evolved what ended up being his lackey was not great, it's still a solid turn. And he still has more card draw, he has removal, and he has Ziliax, and still a swing of his weapon left.
Crucially, if Samuel Tsao had not gone for tracking that turn, he actually had the option to full clear going for the links and then double deadly shot with the coin, but that seems super expensive, so I do like the tracking here. But now he's presented with this awkward decision of, do I give up the minion that I really wanted to buff, or the Master's Call?
Master's Call every day of the week.
I do agree. I just wanted to have a little bit of suspense in there, Raven. But it does feel bad to get rid of the Spring Paw.
You definitely don't want to get rid of a minion you've just dive frenzied, especially one so cheap. You are completely right. But Master's Call needs to be drawn. Wait.
Yes.
Okay. Because you need it in there for the Zul'jin.
Yes.
One, it can be played this turn and draw your cards, which is great. Dream of Spring Paw anyway, perfect. But also, you need at least one Master's Call in the Zul'jin pool to get anything reasonable done.
Yeah. The unfortunate side effect of that 4-drop was that the Spring Paw was going to die if ever it landed onto now Samuel Tsao was forced to leave a shard there.
It's filth. Look at this. Just draw 2 cards.
Oh my gosh,
and then
4 lackeys if he wants them. I think that's better than 2 random hunter cards. He will overdraw, but man, who cares? Like, you got 4 lackeys.
Could just backstab one of his own minions at this point.
Sure.
Like, why not? Just backstab the miscreant if you really want.
Wow, oh my gosh, 3 spell lackeys. Raven, this is crazy. This is nuts.
It's... This deck's nuts. I've not got a better word. I was trying to think of a better way to describe it, but I've not got there. Not yet, at least. He's going to backstab his miscreant. I like this. The backstab's becoming less and less powerful as the game goes on.
Samuel Tsao has the clear available with the Spring Paw, with the Timberwolves and the Unleash the Hounds. You could even play both Timberwolves so that each Hound takes a clean trade on the respective 3 health minions. He would have loved to be able to tag a Hyena onto the end of this turn just to present something of his own to threaten Shaxi. But unfortunately, the best he can do is be responsive at this moment, I think. He could start sending the Hound's Face. Actually really like that. And then you could put the Lynx as one of the things to trade instead. Knowing that Shaxi doesn't have Fan of Knives. And knowing that he has so much value and you're not that near Zul'jin yet, it might be time to start going for a counter push here.
What about Tundra Wolf Lynx? You can still clear. It leaves a Tundra on the board, and then next turn you can just spam double deadly shot to get him in the pool, and then the turn after you coin Zul'jin. That's the way I would see this game going.
Okay.
Oh, sorry, you can't clear it. I didn't mean you can full clear. I meant you can clear the shark, which is the important thing. You can't have that shark live.
I can see this because he knows there are so many lackeys that he probably thinks the Unleash can get better.
Yes, yeah.
But in this particular state, I think Shaxi has the flexibility to not go too wide and get a bunch of spells for his trouble. I still have not memorized the different forms of the contract. I know there's one that summons the Stealth Poison dude. There's one that also casts Betrayal.
Yep.
And
there's one that's gains a copy of the minion you kill.
Yeah.
And then the other one is 2 coins.
But if a card makes you think that much, might be just better to take the Wanted. Obviously, that's a horrible way to think about it, but I think the Wanted is just more efficient in this situation.
Cycle the Wanted into a coin, even more cards, why not?
Imagine if Shaxi gets Zul'jin off the Blink box and just recasts every spell he discovers from these Ethereal Lackeys. How insane would that be?
2-3 as well, not too bad. And this is the biggest problem when you're fighting against this rogue deck, is Shaxi has just spent, in a roundabout way, 0 cards this turn.
Yep.
But he has a board you need to answer. But he can probably do the same thing the turn after, and then the turn after, and then the turn... You're not actually killing cards that are in the deck most of the time. You're killing cards that they keep creating. And the problem with that is you're then uneven in the overall my deck versus your deck kind of fight. And this is just a huge problem here, because I don't... Like, Samuel Tsao can unleash and play Wolf. It's definitely a reasonable turn, but Shaxi's making him use resources, and Shaxi has all the resources in the world. He can go on forever.
I think that Samuel Zhao is still in a good spot though, because he's sitting on the coin Zul'jin. The only awkward thing about this turn is that he can't use both Deadly and Unleash without using the coin, and if he uses the coin this turn, he's suddenly not doing anything next turn. So I would like to see just the one Deadly and hold on to the other one for post
Problem
Zul'jin.
is as well, is there even anything that good in the Zul'jin? There's the 2 Trackins, there's
Frenzy, yeah.
one Dire Frenzy, 1 Master's Call.
Yeah.
That's it, right?
And Unleash now, but
Oh, sorry, yeah, and Unleash that turn, apologies,
Oh,
yeah.
and
So it's 1 Unleash, 1 Dire Frenzy, 2 Tracking,
yeah.
and a Call. Ooh.
You're right, it's not great. It probably just fatigues him unless the Dire Frenzy gets there. But yeah, I think it's specifically because of what you mentioned that he's holding on to the deadly shots in the coin and planning to not coin Zul'jin, I think. You definitely want the deadlies in the pool before Zul'jin. So he's trying to hold out and maybe draw into something like the Unleash the Beast, which is a 2-of in the deck, to get a little bit more value out of the Zul'jin.
Well, that's it, right? If you don't have Unleash the Beast, you definitely need the Deadlies in the Zul'jin. You want minimum one or the other, but when you have 0, wow. Even a Blade Flurry, why not?
I mean, I think that speaks to the choice of spells being rather bad if you have to take Blade Flurry at any instant.
That's still fine though, because even if all Shax's choices are bad, he has 100 bad cards versus Samuel Zhao's 4.5 okay cards.
The weird thing though is that he's just kind of having a hard time killing Samuel Zhao. Still at 28.
I think that's more because he hasn't tried though.
Sure, but is this giving him too much time to Zul'jin? Well, in any case, Samuel Zhao's drawn that key card. He can fit in Deadly and even coin Bestial Wrath if he wants to give the Wyvern immune. I don't think it's that relevant, but it is just one more thing in the Zul'jin.
Well, it also means it doesn't take 3 damage from the wolf, from the fox, sorry, if he trades it in.
He is just scared of Freezing Trap, perhaps, but...
Well, if you're scared of Freezing Trap right now and you choose to play around it, you may as well concede the game, because you have to do something, right?
Well, he could Deadly first, because obviously the wolf is the best target, so maybe you just take the 1 and 4, and then you can trade something. But maybe he's choosing to react to the rest of the turn based on what the secret is.
I think that's fair.
Yeah.
But I think you have to attack. Like, you have the Wyvern next turn anyway. It's fine.
So I think Snake was probably one of the worst for him in this instance, but you just take the 3 mana, kill a 1/1, I think, because the plan is Zul'jin next turn, unless he's thinking he can hold out for a little bit more time and fit in the other Unleash the Beast there. In which case, I still think you Deadly, because the next turn is Unleash and Deadly, right?
Right. Just gonna go for damage though.
He's holding on to both
no.
these Deadly shots. But how is he gonna guarantee that they could get good targets? Barring exactly... oh, he only runs 1 Unleash in the primary. So, Unleash the Hound, sorry.
Yeah.
That seems weird to me. But now Shaxi has quite a bit of damage available.
Shaxy's probably upset that this snake got procced. It means he has less room on the board to actually mess around with stuff, right?
It's true. But he has a good chance of bouncing an Ethereal Lackey here. Is he even going to backstab his own
Yeah, see, I told you he's got too much on the board. He needs space to do shark things.
I think it's totally fine.
Yeah. He can bounce a Lackey as well.
I'm scribbling out the stuff rogue. This is back to created by rogue. That's what it looks like to me.
Replay, 2 more spells.
Sinister Strike, yes. Finally something
Myra's
to end the game.
Is there? Does he need it? If only you could take Myra's and Academic Espionage.
You could meme with the Vanish and get way more spells, but yeah, the Myra's makes sense here. He could try and get to that Leroy, close out the game before
He's gonna
Zul'jin.
die next turn. It's so... This is what I mean, that when we talked about it a little bit earlier, there's still Leroy, Waggle Picks, and Life Drinkers in the deck, which means there's enough damage to kill the average opponent, regardless of any other damage you get in throughout the game. So, although Shaxi was going slow, I'll say in terms of damage dealing throughout the turns, well, Samuel Zhao's on 17 and Shaxi has plenty of damage.
It has to be Zul'jin here, right? There's just no way he's surviving by only clearing 2 minions.
I think, Zul'jin, just for the fact it has his a second Unleash in it, effectively.
Yes, and although he's very scared of the Dire Frenzy proccing first, which means he's essentially going to fatigue after the double tracking, what else can he do? I mean,
Oh,
coin.
this is
yeah,
nice.
That's smart. Well,
You
it's the same
coin so
thing,
you can
right?
beast your wrath.
But you could coin just after this. Oh, wait. I guess it creates more space in your hand for the draw. Because you could just coin after the Zul'jin and it's the same thing. But yeah, this is the better order. But he took quite long to decide on it. And there's going to be quite a few trades happening here on top of quite a few animations. Okay,
Well, that Wyvern. Wait, how is the Wyvern dead?
Kill.
He's not played a kill command, right? Unless I'm going crazy.
I don't know.
He buffed the evil cable rat!
Oh my
Not like
goodness!
this.
What the heck?
And has he just ran out of time?
I do think he ran out. Oh, so it was already queued up, the attack.
Oh, he'd
so,
already
okay,
queued the trade
I
up.
see.
Sure.
But, well, he
Oh,
missed a lot of trades
and
here. That's
this-
too long.
This is something that I was talking to a few people yesterday about, and for me, this kind of rope, we've seen this, I think, maybe even every single week in Asia Pacific,
Yeah.
right? And the problem for me is at this level, you will just lose games because of plays like
Oh,
that. And coining into Zul'jin, I didn't see another play anyway.
Yeah.
So I do think players should always think about what their options are every turn, of course.
Yeah.
But when it is a play to of this extent, I don't think there's that good of an excuse to wait that long
Yeah.
before doing something you know is going to chain a lot of spells. You'll need to you'll unleash. You'll get to trade a lot of minions as well. And Samo Zhao's just being heavily punished. And this is an occurrence. If you don't finish a full turn, your opponent will demolish you and punish you for it.
Yep.
And it's so nuts. I don't know how Samo Zhao's got a chance now.
I don't think he does. I mean, the fact that the buffed minions were not things with charge or rush, they were evil cable rats. He's now gonna take too much time to deal with this board.
And he isn't beating Shaxi in a value war.
Yeah.
Never mind with the buff cable rats.
No way. Even with an empty deck, Shaxi.
Yeah.
And he's just sitting on Leroy, Eviscerate, and SI7 Agent and Life Drinker, just burst for days. No more Scale Hide most likely available because it probably got tracked over.
Yeah, it's so nuts, isn't it? That if you look, this deck's so interesting because if you look at the cards that just always are there for dealing damage, they pretty much can get there on their own. The rest of the deck is just doing whatever you want with it. Cycle through it super quick, drawing cards to stall out, drawing cards to increase the speed of the game, and so on. So I don't think Samo Zhao's got an answer to this. Shaxi's still on 21 even with his fatigue ticking away.
Yeah, let alone answering the board. Even if Samuel Cao did that, Shaxi just has lethal from hand, like,
Right.
way above it.
Yeah.
And this is clearly Samuel Cao's own mistake that led to this. And I would say not even just waiting to do the Zul'jin for so long, even though that was clearly the hugest mistake. I think that holding on to the deadly shots when he knew he kind of had the Zul'jin to stay in the game just didn't make any sense to me.
Yeah, it's tough. It really is, because Samuel Zhao may well have not won this game if he got all those trades off, but he wouldn't have definitely lost it, which is where I feel like he was at with missing so many trades on the, or just face damage, even if it went to face.
Yeah.
Sure, try and raise, that's absolutely fine. There's even the kill command we see in hand now, so maybe even going face with all these options would have been good, especially when you see the Huffer that came out too. But it's just, I don't know, it's super tough. But at this level of play, you're in Grandmasters, you cannot miss so many attacks due to a rope,
Yeah.
because you will simply lose 9 times out of 10 because of it.
Yep. And Shaxi knows it's not explosive, he can,
He can
or
trade,
he
yeah.
can even just do this, it's
he
fine.
can play around this guaranteed, he
Yep.
doesn't even have to test the secret, even if it procs a rat, it doesn't matter because he has lethal from hand anyway. And Shaxi takes game number 1 with this value rogue against Samuel Zhao's mid-range hunter, and it's historically and generally speaking, it's a tough matchup for the hunter anyway, but I feel like with how, I'll say slow, Shaxi was playing because of the nature of his deck, doing a lot of value things, but at the expense of not a lot of aggression. And Samuel Zhao, I feel like, had a chance there, but it just never quite got there, did it?
Yeah, I think he did have a very solid chance, just having the Zul'jin that early on in the game and just having it decently loaded up with things. Granted, I think it could have had a few more deadly shots in there, at least one. I definitely think if he had just played a little bit quicker, that game would not have panned out that way. Maybe Shaxi could have still taken it in the end. I actually criticized that Blade Flurry pick, but it did come out pretty useful for him towards the end.
Well,
And,
the thing is as well, when you have so many additional cards you can pick from over the course of a few turns, you can take maybe if I might need this
Yeah.
at some point,
Just an
I have it.
emergency
You don't
switch,
need this
right?
card, as in that singular card, to win a game. You're not one card short of winning. But having like, oh, I'll take Blade Flurry just in case he goes wide and sticks a board, then I can just help get rid of it. One thing I'll note as well, which is completely my bad, I mentioned about drawing a Hyena early, and Samuel Zhao does not play Hyena in this deck,
Oh,
which is just forgetfulness from me, but just going over the list once again, there's no Hyena, which is also a slight problem because although Hyena is often easy to deal with, say, on curve for Rogue because of backstabs SI7 agents, it removes the chance at putting just a threat down, and something that at least your opponent has to think about and try and deal with if it gains some extra health and you manage to trade a couple of beasts in. But there are no Hymens. There are also no Hymens in this list, but there are no Hyenas in Samuel Zhao's primary list. I believe both players are sticking to that primary.
Yeah, it will be the primary again, and I do think Samuel Zhao has learned his lesson. If he is so blessed to have Zul'jin early again in this game, then it is just a rule of thumb that if you're gonna Zul'jin that turn, just slam it immediately, because those animations take a while. It's not the same as with certain rogue decks where, yes, the turn may have many branching decisions, but that can happen at your own pace, how fast you pick the discovers. But Zul'jin kind of locks you out for maybe minus 30 seconds just by playing the card, and then you need to react accordingly. So I really think that Samuel Zhao has felt the pressure in that game. We saw him react really stressed out, and do think he's going to be keen to clean it up for this next one.
Yeah, and I've said it again, you will get at this level, it's not just ladder where you could run into anyone and maybe you get away with it. At this level, you often just get punished very, very heavily for just strictly just missing damage or missing trades to do whatever. But I'm looking forward to seeing what this rogue deck does again, to be completely honest. Shaxi is playing to go 6-1 in Grandmaster so far, which will keep him at least on level. I don't know how tiebreakers will work to exactly see who ends up first or second by the end of the weekend, we'll see, but it'll keep him on par with Dawn, at least going forward, as we go straight into game number 2. Samuel Zhao, though, fighting to just stay in with a chance at making that top cut.
Yeah, but that is a pretty solid hand to do it with. Springpaw going on the play, I think, is quite decent as a turn 1 play against Rogue, because they're not going to coin Dagger into that. And then he's eventually got Master's Call. Oh, but with the option of tracking, I guess this just gives him more flexibility. Rat Trap looking good for his turn 2 play.
Yeah, those are all good cards overall. The Kill Command, the Animal Comp as well. But Rat Trap, as you quite rightly said, gets you through turn 2, and then the Master's Call on 3 will draw you stuff to do anyway, so you don't really need the Animal Companion Kill Command that much.
Shaxi still got some decent minions to curve out with a bunch of 3/3s all on the left of his hand. Maybe I'll call this 3/3 Rogue.
So Shaxi will know exactly what that secret is. There is only a 1 of Rat Trap in the whole deck, so Shaxi is fully aware.
And I don't think it changes his play of just Bling Fox. Can you think about Coin Shark and then use Life Drinker for more value, or even the Witchwood Piper?
He's probably afraid of trade
So many.
a Springpaw Deadly Shot, right?
Sure.
I think Shark in this matchup, or at least in the early game of this matchup, you need to hold on to it to guarantee value, because it's I feel like it's the backbone of the deck, to be completely honest.
Yeah. And I also just like having the 3/3 body on board with the Bling Fox to try and force the Hunter to be the one to respond in this spot. Samuel Zhao has Scale Hide and Frenzy ready for turn 6, and I'm sure he'll be keen to have that exact combo. It might be that he's forced to use it on Springpaw, though. For this turn, he's got a nice Wing Blast target. And can even fit double Shimmerfly onto the end of it. Great turn.
Yeah, that's actually really solid. They've seen the true value of Wing Blast just being the second you trade, which you often can in Hunter with its so many 1/1s, especially the Wing Blast, like 1 mana, just tell a minion to go away is pretty sick.
Now, Shaxi, if you were scared of Deadly Shot last turn, it's even scarier this turn. He can go for a reactive play of Dagger Coin SI7 Agent. Seems a little bit passive. The Witchwood Piper, he was hovering over that, will get him either Novice or Cable Rat, but more likely to get Novice because he played 1 Rat already. I guess it depends on what he expects as a turn 5 from Samuel Zhao.
Yeah.
which the only 5-cost card naturally is the Tundra Rhino. But maybe some form of like 1-drop plus Frenzy is scary, but that punishes no matter what minion he plays because they're all 3/3s.
Yeah, I think Shaxi might be considering what turn he plays Shark and if he needs coin for that turn. Because I honestly didn't mind the SI7 Agent Coin Dagger to just clear the board, but he might need to, or feel the need to hold on to coin to be able to Shark coin X and get some guaranteed value out of that. See, Samuel Sal's going to go down with the Track Shot.
Yeah, the Mark Shot was a sick pickup for him here, and this is a difficult pick, I would say. Like, having 2 Frenzy is great because you have 2 frenzyable targets, but I think Kill Command does look the most flexible here. And having only one Unleash in the deck, Unleash the Hounds, I guess Revenge of the Wild was the least likely of the 3.
He did throw away a Kill Command that threw that track in as well, so
Yeah.
now he's back up to 2 total, which is nice for pushing extra damage too.
Shakti now has Backstab, SI, and Dagger for a full clear if he wants to. That also still plays around Rat Trap.
Looks good to me, to be completely honest.
In that case, he would be scared of Unleash the Beast as the immediate follow-up, but he still has the second SI to answer what would be a 5/2 after trading with an SI7.
And
So
I feel like Unleash the Beast is often a problem against as Rogue, no matter what. So if your opponent's got it, they're going to play it and take a value trade outside of Edwin, right? So you need to commit at some point. Did go with the Novice, and Shaxi just putting so much emphasis on this card draw. He played the Witchwood Piper out, he's playing the Novice out, and he's just cycling through this deck as quickly as possible.
to me, this looks like he's trying to get to Miscreant and or Togwaggle as soon as possible. Because the way the deck is built without the Myras, but still generating a lot of things, I guess he is very, as you mentioned, there's a lot of emphasis on just trying to draw specific things. It's just that the way the deck is built with no Pogos, you don't know what
Right.
the specific thing is, but I'm willing to guess it's Togwaggle here because he's got a Lackey in hand and another way to generate one. 2 secrets for Samuel Tsao off of the Shimmer Flies.
Sniper's pretty sick
Yeah,
too.
imagine hitting a shark with that.
It's the best. The only better thing to hit against a rogue with a snipe is back in the day, he's hitting a Gadgetzan with the snipe, which is pretty much the same thing. Gadgetzan and Shark are actually very similar cards.
Yeah.
I like playing both as well, because what this does is Shaxi now has to play around 2 random secrets,
Yep.
which is way more difficult than playing around a single 100% rat trap.
He can immediately test for 2 things by attacking face, which is... Oh, 3 things, sorry. Freezing Trap, Explosive, and Misdirection if he attacks with the SI. And I don't think he'd be too sad about losing the SI, or no matter what happens to it. But he would overdraw the SI if it were freezing from his perspective. So maybe he wants to play a card first. But if he plays a card first, that gets damaged by the Explosive Trap. I don't think
really
you'd be
tricky,
sad,
isn't it?
even if it's frozen, for it to like not be playable anymore. Yeah, I think I would start with this order too in his position. Yeah.
He's playing a card that does not die to snipe by the looks of things. And this is nice for Shaxi if he commits here. Not nice because his Rhino gets put to 1, but...
I think he's gonna evolve it.
Well, his Rhino was generated anyway.
Yep.
It doesn't die. And also, as you said, with the 1 mana with the Witchy lacking the evolve into a 6/6, well, your traps weren't so cool anymore, were they?
I would say 6/6 is above average for the stat line of 6-drop minions, and it's conveniently out of kill command range, although Samuel Tsao can play Spring Paw kill command to deal with it. But that means the rest of the turn is looking kind of sketchy. Maybe just links to trade off the Lackey and Hero Power. The important thing is that he holds on to the Scale Hide with Dire Frenzy for later, I think.
I also wonder if Samuel Tsao is just considering...
Oh, not trading the Lackey is 0 respect for Togwaggle, but I guess he knows that, like, if Shaxi had Tog, he probably would have held on to the Lackey. I don't know. I think I would have traded it in that spot.
I think there's potential for a Dire Frenzy question mark the turn after. or at least having with 2 Dire Frenzies, he needs 2 targets, and you can't feasibly say the one target you do use is going to be reliable to hit the second one.
Yeah.
But I think
So Shaxi's gonna go off the Rat Trap, but he has the answer with a Backstab and Coin Kobold Lackey for double procs. That's pretty convenient for him.
there's Scheme as well.
Yeah. Oof.
Scheme could be nice for Ziliax later.
I can see that.
Because
yeah.
Ziliax, you just, any damage they do, you just kind of negate it with the heal anyway.
The problem is, with the way the game has panned out, I don't know if the Rogue can simply play control. Because at some point, if Samuel Tsao hits his Zul'jin, not all the Ziliaxes in the world can deal with a bunch of Wyverns on the board. So I feel like Shaxi still needs to be the aggressor. Granted, all the other cards there were not great for being aggressive either, so maybe the scheme gives him the most options for later on.
Just as much he could also scheme Leroy in.
Yeah.
You know, so I think the scheme is the most flexible and gives him the most chances. And if there's anything Shaxi likes, I think, with this deck is flexibility. Because I don't think he's been under 6-7 cards throughout the whole game. So it's so nuts. Hand Rogue? Is this just another name we can scribble down?
What is this, the 5th name we've come up with
Yeah,
now?
5th or 6th.
A Rogue has no name.
So now
And a Samuel Tsao has no Unleash the Hounds. That's
Yeah.
unlucky.
Scale Hide into Dire Frenzy just to get it down?
I'm liking the look of that. And it sucks to leave a Shark on board, but I think his game plan is get to Zul'jin, and although the Dire Frenzy shuffles put him a little bit farther out of range of Zul'jin, I don't think you're ever sad to draw a 2-mana 4/6 Rush Lifesteal.
Also, you could just play the 2/1/1s as well, the Timberwolf and the Lynx, just to play them. You heal. Well, the heal bit more doesn't matter, but you just have stuff on the board. Ooh.
It is very awkward. Maybe in that case I would hold on to the Timberwolf just because of maybe drawing Unleash, and it seems like the Timberwolf is absolutely
going
gonna
to
die.
Press Hero Power, right?
Yeah, well, maybe there's relevance to trading off one Lackey, but
Well,
sure. Yeah.
So Samuel Tsao managed to squeeze in a couple of hero powers over the last few turns, and I do like it, mainly because if he squeezes off a few more, then he might be able to just, you'll understand what I mean, but randomly kill Shaxi. And I don't mean by accident, I mean kill Shaxi when Shaxi wasn't expecting to die or can't play around a certain life total that maybe Samuel Tsao can reach. Because I think he does have to get a little bit creative with how he wins this game.
Now Shaxi, he's got so much stuff that he wants to generate, and I can see a way to create hand space by playing the Kobold Lackey and Prep Avis. Prep Avis on the Scale Hide, trade off a minion, and then Kobold Face, or just in a way that means that Samuel Tsao can't heal up, and then that would create enough space to get the full value from the Evil Miscreant.
Or even, with the amount of value already in hand, do you just take the Life Drinker? Because you heal 6. 6 is a...
But 4 lackeys.
But you can probably
Yeah,
get 18
okay.
lackeys next turn. I don't know with this
Sure.
deck. No, I'm being serious, right?
Yeah.
Shaxi has no issue with hand value whatsoever. Whereas now he can put a 3/3 on the board.
I can
Heal
see that.
6, deal 6 is actually such a huge health swing.
Yeah. Sorry, I just blanked on the number of cards in hand. It would have been 3 lackeys, not 4. And he would have overdrawn the next card. So I guess
Yeah.
overall the Life Drinker makes more sense. And now Samuel Tsao, he's still at an okay health total, and he's got a bunch of Scale Hides waiting. It's just how he wants to partition his resources while waiting for Zul'jin. That's all that is right now.
You know what's the hardest part about this matchup for Samuel Tsao? I feel like he is, instead of fighting another person, which would be a reasonably fair fight, he's fighting an army of thousands of ants. Because the board's just constantly 1/1s, maybe 2/2s, you know, so it's small, but it's just constant waves of them. And with what he has, he can't realistically or reasonably deal with them every turn. So even if they're just getting the odd bit of damage here and there, it's chipping away, and then Shaxi's just going to kill him out of nowhere. So even now, Samuel Tsao has a decent board, he has good follow-up, because he even has Dire Frenzy along with the Unleash the Beast. But just these minions just chipping away, and suddenly Samuel Tsao's going to die.
You talk about chipping away, but Shaxi actually narrowed down his board, I think, to play around specifically Unleash. And I was looking at how much damage he could push face that turn, but I think he was scared of the swing that Zul'jin could possibly provide should he do that and not leave any resources in hand. As for Samuel Cao, Zul'jin finally enters the hand, and there's quite a lot in it, but not enough to answer the board.
Also, this just technically sets up lethal from Shaxi anyway.
Yeah.
It's,
actually, yeah, it is still.
it's
yeah.
so nuts.
Yeah. There's still a lot in the Zul'jin that answers the board. Sorry, he's got Marked Shot, Wing Blast. He got Animal Companion to generate something and possibly land the Dire Frenzy on it. Also, the first half Unleash the Beast, and a bunch of secrets. So this is just insane. Even though it doesn't have a Hounds in it.
Check ordering though. Because ordering does matter when there's targeted removal. So
Oh,
Mark
for
Shot
sure.
coming down now is fantastic for
Yes.
Samuel Zhao. He wants all the removal to be played now, and then summon his beasts. Piggy.
It can't attack. I think it died.
Oh, he locked it in. Straight to face. Nope. At the kill command.
Oh,
That's not bad.
that's unlucky. But can he kill the Life Drinker? That would be a disaster. If he couldn't.
He has explosive trap.
Oh, that's fair, yeah. Okay. So he can trade into it and soften it up.
That wasn't bad because it means Samuel Zhao can heal.
Yeah. Well, he's also got scale heights.
That's what I mean though. He can just outlast the ants. Samuel Zhao is now the anteater.
the exterminator.
Yeah.
It's funny though because Shaxi's actually got a mosquito and not an ant. But that mosquito will also die to this explosive.
Yeah, and Shaxi knows that. He's making that attack with the full knowledge. He just wants to open up and remove that explosive trap so he can follow up with the rest of his stuff.
And he's feeding the smallest minion to a snipe here. And he knows now that he's on a timer. Scale hides almost certainly in hand because of the Master's Call. And then Life Drinker's waiting in the deck. There's no way he wins on value despite all the lackeys in the world. The army of ants cannot deal with the army of beasts.
Rogue spells are pretty good though.
Yeah, he could just get a million Eviscerates or Sinister Strikes and maybe outrace the heal.
Also remember there is still Leroy's, and I believe he's not played a single Shadow Step, right?
I
I
don't.
don't think he's played a Shadow Step unless I blinked and missed it. So there's still just Leroy, Eviscerate, Shadow Step. You know, there's still a lot of damage available.
I feel like he stepped the Cable Rat, but I'm unsure if that was this game or last game. But you make a solid point. Like even just the one Shadow Step with Leroy could be very relevant.
The sap was nice to actually kill the 6/6 because Samazad's hand was full. Cold Blood, I like it. Push more damage.
Do you ever Myra's to get to that Leroy specifically? I mean,
You're
he
only
had
on
the
10 cards, well, 11 cards, right? Does he need to draw more? Oh, wow.
I mean,
Oh, he
I
can
think he's on a
scheme.
timer.
He can scheme as well.
Sure.
I forgot that the scheme has been ticking in his hand for about
I just think
12
that the
turns.
scheme won't be too relevant here. I feel like Shaxi has a set amount of turns to kill Samuel Cao. Otherwise, Samuel Cao will just heal out of range. Granted, he saw one scale height get burned. But yeah, Samuel Cao still's got this other one and the Life Drinkers.
Bear in mind though, the life drinkers, the size of the minion does not affect, it's not got life steal.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
it actually will only heal for 3, which isn't a large number if you're throwing Leroy's at someone every turn.
But he will just go up to 25 after this, which is a large
It's
number.
a pretty solid life.
Oh,
total.
and you can just create the Mega Scale Height, which does not stack. The ones in deck are still 4/6s, but this is absolutely fine for Samuel Cao. I don't really see a way out of this for Shaxi anymore. Looking like just rush and hero power, clear as many things as possible. Samuel Cao can chill.
So let's just talk about what Shaxi has available to him. Samuel Zhao is going to rock this game plan of I have more healing than you do and keep the control of the board, especially now with this Berserker throw. It means that he can remove these little pesky minions at least one a turn. But Shaxi does have High Spire and Togwaggle along with Scheme. He's still got plenty of lackeys available to him. I still think he has a Miscreant in the deck. And he has value if he wants it.
Problem is, there's no great way to deal with this scale height. Like, he could invest the 2 damage from this lackey, the SI, and the Eviscerate into it, just so it doesn't get any more healing.
I guess he could swing. to reduce down the amount of resources, and he can Shadow Step one of these lackeys.
But it means he takes 7, and Samuel Sal heals another 7. And at that point, I have no idea how Shakti's gonna win, even with the best Myras in the world. If he schemes even the best minion in the world, which is, what, Togwaggle, he's not got enough lackeys, and that is just too slow turn after turn. Whereas the Hunter now, I think Samuel Sao can just start pushing face soon. Just because he's healed out of range. Good order from Shakti here to see if he could bounce the 2 damage one. Because I think he would have rather bounced that to kill this Gale Height. Oh.
No, I think this is more flexible with the Tog, right? It means he has a lackey in hand if he draws Tog next turn.
But Shakti is so stressed. I don't know if he would have wanted to play down the last lackey, but I think it makes sense. Yeah, like to have something in hand for Tog.
Oh, wait. Should he have done all of that, but traded the Faceless in and bounced the Ethereal? Do you think in hindsight he could have forced a Shadow Step effect on the Ethereal instead of the deal 2?
I don't think so, because trading something in would mean Samuel Sao healed even more, which I think is counterintuitive to the game plan.
I just wondered if he cared, because the amount of heal he's got in the deck, I guess he's going to heal for a lot regardless. I don't know, this game's hard now.
Yeah, this is going to be the Myra's turn, but he can't fit in the backstab unless he wants to backstab his own lackey. Actually went and hate it because I feel like he needs to guarantee he gets the Tog to have even any semblance of winning the game now.
The Brotherhood shall prevail.
Okay, so he'll draw 8 out of 9 cards.
He can...
Unless you stab, and then... Okay, so this guarantees he draws all 9. He will always get the Tog.
So what does he scheme? I can't wait for this. Because he could scheme the lackey too and just have an army of endless deal 2 damage for 1 mana.
No, the true army of ants.
Oh wow, look at these. I mean, this is a decent amount of damage. Oh,
there was both steps left, you're right.
And then there's a shark.
Okay.
What if he schemes the lackey? Okay, I've got a plan. It's bad.
Okay.
What? Right, I am not good enough to pull this off, especially with the rope burning. But basically, Shakti maybe could scheme the lackey, but you use the Tog first, scheme the lackey, and then use the one that draw cards and fills your hand with it later.
Look,
and then you have Shark into a million lackeys that deal 4 for 1 mana.
Okay, how are you drawing in that case?
Well, don't talk to me about
it. You're getting them 1 per turn. Okay, let's talk about the real matter at hand. There's a 16/16, but the owl
draws the 1 card and fills your hand with it, right? So you dump your hand and then draw the lackey.
Okay, so you're taking the goblet. Okay.
Yes. But yes, an owl on a huge Van Cleef is great, but I think my plan's more interesting, so I'm going to keep talking.
Sure, it definitely was more interesting.
That's 4 damage for 1 mana. For effectively 2 turns, because it's unlikely that your shark dies. I'm just thinking of extreme ways Shakti wins.
Yeah. No, I mean, it looks like...
sick. He could do it next turn. Well, he'd have to empty his hand a little bit.
Well, the lackey would have to survive, and it's not surviving. Well, he can generate another one from Miscreant. He still has that. We might see it still, Raven. I really think Samuel Sao should be pushing way more face. Maybe not this turn, but...
Just cash in on the fatigue.
I mean, it's tough, right? Because using the Rhino like this means that he can't do the thing with the Rhino double Timberwolves, which I think is very relevant.
Oh, here we go.
Because he's just not got that many cards in hand. Okay, there's a damage lackey.
He can do it!
The scheme is real thick now, too.
I mean... I'm kind of being serious as well. When we
no, I can see it now.
Yeah, when we talk about what to scheme, these things deal 4 damage a turn with the shark. The only issue with it this turn is that he's used the shark, so we'd only end up with 1 turn to kind of do it. But I guess that's also with the assumption that Samuel Sao can kill the shark. Maybe he can't.
Between hero power and a bunch of... Oh my god, that is an injured Blade Master. Raven, what is this game?
If Shaxi wins, this is just the best deck in the history of Hearthstone. Because I don't know how he can win.
Okay, we call it Best Rogue.
Yeah.
That's the name. That's a 4/6 scale height, I'm pretty sure.
They
not
both
that,
are, right?
Not that he can get the healing. Yeah, I think so.
Because he did it twice. He die frenzied 2 scale heights,
Yeah.
so the ones left have to be buffed.
There's just tons of them. And Samuel Sao, he's playing to fatigue here because he's not accounting for the scheme that Shaxi discovered. And that's why I think he was willing to throw out the Rhino all willy-nilly, but he's going to get the bad news that the fatigue counter is going to stop. And he has used his one-of Rhino, which is his best way of pushing burst damage at this point.
Could also scheme... I don't think this would be as good as other things, but you could also scheme Life Drinkers. So he just deals 3, heals 3 every turn whilst putting a 3/3 on the board. I mean, that's definitely not the worst thing in the world either.
Yeah.
And it's definitely less fancy, and normally less fancy is better.
I'm liking your goblet play the more I hear it.
That's just sick, right?
Yeah.
Oh, wait. Is he just going to Leroy kill him? Because he could, right? He just plays Tog this turn, does the draw 3, gets the wand, and then he does the Leroy turn next turn, right?
Got 18.
So it's what? Yeah, okay, he's just doing the Leroy turn. That's just way better than everything I came up with. Although doing an army of 1 mana 1/1 deal 4 is great.
Okay.
But yeah, he just kills him next turn.
Sorry, it is 24, right? Because of the initial Leroy does 6, and then the 3 off of the it is a lot. So you're right. You're absolutely right.
Well, no, depend on his board state, right? Because he can fill his hand with Leroy's. Because he preps the wand.
Huh?
So he draws 6.
But you want them all to cost 0, so you can do it all in one turn. So like he Leroy schemes, prep wand, and then gets 4 Leroys attacking.
Oh yeah, you can't do the second one. Yeah, you're right.
And
For some reason, I wasn't counting the mana probably.
no, it's all good. I mean, this is definitely lethal. Next, sorry, the scale heights can change things, but there's also a waggle pick, so that's 28.
But also as well, the problem is, if this board is cleared and a scale hide lives, it doesn't actually matter in the overall grand scheme of things, right? Because he can 30 him.
Yes.
So this makes Samuel Sao survive for now, but I don't think he wins.
Yeah.
Because you can have the lifesteal you want without taunt. It doesn't matter.
It is impossible to 30 right now, though, because he'll have no mana to play the Shadow Step Leroy with the waggle pick, I think. Pretty sure.
He takes 3 this turn.
He goes to the Leroy scheme. And then prep wand is another 1 mana. Oh, he will have the mana.
Wand.
Yes. Sorry. He does have the mana to play the 5th Leroy.
Yeah,
the 5th
yeah.
Leroy. Yeah.
Because he just preps wand, plays wand, and that's 6
Yeah.
Leroys, which is 7
Yeah.
Leroys, which is definitely more than...
I can't count mana anymore.
I was so
but yeah.
confused. I was so convinced it worked. But then I did the whole, I'm going to believe you, you know more than me.
Sorry.
But what a game, though. I mean, I don't know what... I'm going to play this deck as soon as this cast is over. Well, this cast today is over, and I'm not just going to leave after this match. But Shaxi takes the win there, and, you know, you've got to give it up. Whatever you think of this deck, and it confuses me to a certain extent, but that was very well played, very well thought out, and he did pick up that scheme very early on. So every single turn that scheme is taken away, Shaxi was always thinking about, okay, do I need scheme? How can I use scheme? How do I do this? And it ended up so far in advance, but he ended up just getting the Leroy kill. And that was impressive. We were talking how he's going to win with all that heal. Well, if you can kill someone from max health, they can heal all they want. They can't go past 30.
I mean, and who knows if Samuel Sao saw that coming, because it seemed like he was just playing for heavy control throughout the end of the late game there, and he was just relying on fatigue to get in there. And it made sense based on having all those scale heights, but he simply didn't account for the discovered scheme, which is like the reason that certain players were bringing that to Worlds, I think.
Yeah, and it's the problem, right? He would have known there was a discovered rogue spell in hand, but can you, like, how much and can you play around that? I don't think he really could have played around it. Maybe if he played more aggressive, it wouldn't have given Shaxi the time to play the Tog out, pick the two, and do it that slowly because he had to do some level of setup. But still, that was a crazy series, and Shaxy's road deck's pretty cool. And if it continues to perform like this is looking good for him as he goes 6-1 in his division now. So that's actually pretty sick for Shaxy, doing well on Rogue once again. That was our feature match for the day, and what a feature match it was. We've got another match coming right up, Tyler versus Blitzchung. So don't go anywhere, and we'll be right back.
Available for a limited one-time purchase starting on June 3rd, the new Masters Bundle contains 10 Rastakhan Rumble Packs, 10 Rise of Shadow Packs, a new Stolen Thunder card back, and the Thunder King Shaman Hero. The Masters Bundle is available and giftable now through the Blizzard shop. With the Masters Bundle, you can add to your collection while also celebrating Hearthstone's vibrant esports scene.
Hi there, my name is Chad Nervig, and I'm an initial designer on the Hearthstone team. I'm here to talk to you about the devious mechanics coming in the next Hearthstone expansion, Rise of Shadows. Specifically, let's talk about the Rise of Evil. In Rise of Shadows, we have the League of Evil, an organization of wicked villains whose evil plot has brought them to the floating city of Dalaran. You're probably already familiar with their core team. They're villains you've tangled with before. Let's go through the League of Evil dossier. First off, in the Warlock class, we've got the leader, Archthief Rafaam, the bad guy from the League of Explorers. He's joined by Madame Lazul, the priest from Whispers of the Old Gods, King Togwaggle, the rogue, Hagatha, the shaman, and lastly, Dr. Boom, the warrior. Together, they've formed the League of Evil and have set their eyes on the treasures of Dalaran. Now, every villainous organization needs lackeys to do their bidding, and the League of Evil has the best. Lackeys are a new mechanic in Rise of Shadows. There are cards in the Priest, Rogue, Shaman, Warlock, and Warrior classes, the Evil classes, which add random lackeys to your hand. Check out this card, Improve Morale. Improve Morale is a very versatile card, able to be used on both enemy minions or occasionally friendly minions.
My blade.
There are 5 potential lackeys you'll receive. They're 1 mana, 1/1 minions with useful battle cries. We designed them to be valuable in most situations and occasionally awesome in the right situation. Lackeys don't stop here either. This is a year-long mechanic, so look forward to more lackeys and more cards that generate them. But lackeys alone aren't enough for world domination. They bring the manpower, but you also need a goal, a direction. Being evil isn't just sitting around. You've got to have big plans. Each villain in Rise of Shadows has an evil scheme. Schemes are spells with incredible potential, but you can't just rush into an evil scheme. You've got to take your time and think it through. That's why schemes start out weak, but their effects improve every turn that they remain in your hand. Take Rafaam's scheme. It might not look like much at first, but wait it out and it becomes a lot more powerful. So plan your moves carefully. Rafaam's scheme is effectively limited by how many available board spaces you have, but other schemes have no cap. During the development of Rise of Shadows, we experimented with many different mechanics before finally landing on what we know today as lackeys and schemes. Lackeys used to be called Evil Zugs. Before that, they were named Marks of Evil and were a currency that were generated by some cards and spent by other cards. We found that the requirement to draw both pieces in a proper ratio made them unreliable and not as fun. So we turned the currency into the payoff itself, similar to spare parts from Goblins vs. Gnomes. Schemes used to be spells with random additional effects or with additional discovered effects. The concept was to make an adapt-like mechanic for spells, but it proved challenging to find interesting bonus effects that worked on any spell, and also make interesting spells that worked with those bonus effects. As you've probably already guessed, the villains we'll meet in Rise of Shadows will be back in new different forms. But I have one more exciting set of cards to share with you today. Callback cards. Each evil villain has brought a card with them that harkens back to the set they were originally from. Each of these reuses a previous mechanic. We've already revealed Madame Lazul's callback card, Forbidden Words, which is a throwback to the forbidden cards from Whispers of the Old Gods. Now, let's see what Dr. Boom is bringing to the Rise of Shadows. a new Omega card, Omega Devastator. Like the other Omega cards from the Boomsday project, it has reasonable stats on its own, but it does something incredible in the late game. It's a great throwback for Dr. Boom. I hope you've enjoyed this introduction to the League of Evil. Talking about them does make me wonder what exactly their grand plans are.
Our evil plan comes together!
We've got a battle of the middle of the pack right now. We've got Tyler versus Blitzchung coming right up. And Tyler is at 4-2, so he's just under there, say middle of the pack, but still a couple of wins can put him to the top. And then Blitzchung is at 3-3 so far. So, you know, whoever wins here is going to help just propel themselves and try and catch Glory, Dawn, and Shaxi up in Division B, because these two are the ones that are just on the cusp of making that top 3. But let's take a look at the decks and see what we've got coming up. It is going to be a Bomb Warrior from Tyler.
Yes, and it's rocking the Geppetto Joybuzz in the primary. We saw Surrender bringing this last week, and I think it's very consistent in its game plan of just trying to get there more with the early game. It's also got the double Devastators, which I think this type of list, while it is still just a warrior, which has the great shell of control cards, it just has a lot of stuff that you can play on curve. And because you're cutting things like Weapons Project and Harrison, you run the Geppetto Joybuzz for both additional cycle and the added benefit of having perhaps cheap Devastators or cheap Dynamatics.
Yeah, I think the longer time goes on, we're going to see more and more Geppetto in decks, because the fact it not only draws 2 cards, which is just decent card draw, of course, but also there's so much space right now, or so many decks right now that play cards with good battle cries, that for 1 mana, even if it's a 1/1, the battle cry is so good. I've seen Geppetto being played a lot in Shaman. I know I was playing a Jambray Shaman list that ran it, and you realize all the battle cries and the generation effects, that this guy just always draws good cards, and you can always play them very cheaply going forward. But let's see what his opponent is going to be playing. It's going to be Blitzchung, and maybe we get to the point where this is just no longer a surprise that Blitzchung is going to be playing Hunter, but he is going to play a Secret Hunter. So we checked this deck out at the start of the show today as our featured deck. It is one that interests me greatly, because it's one of the Hunter lists I have not played tons of.
Yeah, I'm honestly not sure how well it lines up against Bomb Hunter. I feel like it drops a few percentage compared to Mid Hunter, but maybe has a little bit more game against Rogue and is also quite effective against Mage, and maybe that's the read that Blitzchung had, is maybe a bit more Mage in the meta. But I do think that this this deck is definitely one of those that has that chance of just drawing the most insane early game possible. If you get double Secret Keeper into a Secret into Sunreaver Spy, that is pretty insane. And of course, having Subject 9 at any point, except when you've drawn all your secrets, obviously, is very powerful.
Yeah, and the big, the stick-out difference for me, and with my experience against this deck mainly, is that if the secrets get cooking, which they normally do, right? There's enough secrets in the deck to draw them, as well as Subject 9, as you mentioned, and then Mass Contender also pulls and plays secrets, which is insane. So if these secrets start to stack, and an Eagle Horn Bow is equipped, well, unless I'm going crazy, I don't see a way for Tyler to kill weapons in his primary, at least.
You're right.
So you can't really play things without proccing secrets when there are so many secrets active, which means this Eagle Horn, I've had someone literally equip an Eagle Horn Bow on 3, and I've not purposely tried to play into the secrets, but they've done upwards of like 12 damage or something silly with the bow, and you can't stop it, because if you stop the procs, then you stop playing cards, and that means then, well, you're just taking more damage anyway. So I think this Eagle Horn Bow could wreak havoc against Tyler if the secrets get going early, but as you mentioned, this is all about the early game, I think, for Blitzchung.
That's true, and you make a very good point about the bow, because against particularly Bomb Warrior, I was thinking maybe they don't have to walk into things like Rat Trap, which are 2 of them in the deck, but you just can't play around Snipe forever. You'll have to play a minion at some point.
And like for 2 freezing.
Yeah.
Like,
they can hold off on attacking perhaps, but especially when they're in Dr. Boom mode and they need to capitalize on the rush to deal with things. I don't know if this matchup goes that late, but at some point the secrets are going to proc and the bow is going to deal quite a lot. That being said, I don't know if Blitzchung wants to keep secrets as opposed to just the early game minions like the Keeper and the Sunreaver Spy.
Yeah, look at the bow keep though. That is just legit. One, it does kill the goblins, and the thing about attacking as well is Bomb Warriors evolved into a deck that a lot of the time you do try and play on curve because it's never too too shabby anyway.
Yep.
And also, the strength of it is your minions can, as well as shuffling bombs and stuff, go toe-to-toe with other early curve minions. And if you negate the attacking side of that, and the Hunter player does have one or two of these early minions, then even that early damage starts stacking up. And then if something gets freezing trapped, then suddenly you're on half health, and then you have to spend the whole game surviving instead of being proactive. Did Blitzchung throw 2 secrets to get 2 secrets?
That is exactly what I chuckled at. Yep. But given that the deck is running 2, 4, 6, 8, 9 secrets, no, 7, I can't count, 7 secrets in total, that is relatively likely, I would say. And you bring up a good point about the Bomb Warrior having a lot of early game, because sometimes their hand just forces them to play stuff. And when they play stuff, the Hunter is happy because they proc secrets. And when it comes to that kind of early game battle, I think the Hunter has a leg up because their secrets should, in theory, allow them to have more efficient removal.
Yeah, so secret ordering is important now. I believe we'll see the freezing trap first because it's the least likely to get procced, which means you can guarantee more of the choice of Mass Contender or Bow, probably Bow, because you know there's no removal. And then after Bow, you can move into, in which the secret probably still doesn't get procced, even the freezing trap. So then you move into Mass Contender and then so on and so on. So I believe that's roughly the ordering Blitzchung would look for. Maybe with the lack of minion this turn, so there's no minion coined out, this is better instead of going Bow first. But if there was, say, a Goblin played out on coin or an Acolyte, it would have been very likely to see the Bow from Blitzchung.
And he discovers Rat Trap too from the Mass Contender. That's a pretty good one. Although Tyler, I think, is just going to take this as slow as possible.
Right.
He did not have to test Snipe with coining a minion there. He could just chill out. And he can just use this Wrench Caliber to deal with the Life Drinker. I guess Snake Trap would be mildly annoying for him here, but he'll find out that it's not Snake.
And you already start to see the difference in playstyle that this Secret Hunter forces players to just change their general style. Because if you just run into the secrets kind of, willy-nilly, then you're going to fall even further and further behind, which is what the deck excels at.
Exactly. So now Blitzchung, he is hesitating on the Animal Companion because no matter what it is, it dies to Dinomatic, and if it's Huffer, it dies to what you can already see in the Wrench Caliber.
I think he'll want to equip Bow, because right now, Animal Comp plus Secret feels good, because even if they play a Dinomatic, it kills it. But Snipe also does 3 damage at some point, because it can proc the Bow durability. So I think if you go a little bit slower, it means that the Dynamatic won't be played anyway, and then you can play secrets that like Snipe next turn.
Yeah. It could be funny because we could just see a hero power war between these two at some point. And the hero powers directly cancel each other out. But at some point, that being turn 7, Tyler is going to have the superior hero power and just the ability to start holding off on playing too many minions. Sorry, it had to stop holding off on playing too many minions, and then he can play them all at once. And it's when there's too many minions at once that the Hunter struggles, because the traps can only proc one of the attacks at a time.
Right. I think this Bow is just such an MVP in this specific game here, because Blitzchung just knows it never dies, which means he can be as free as he wants with having these charges. He kills off the Acolyte to give Tyler the least amount of draws. That seems sensible. The old Eaglehorn Bow versus Acolyte of Pain fight goes all the way to the beginning of time. But this means that it might look like a bit rough because Blitzchung's on 1 durability, but if Tyler plays a minion, then he's on 2 durability and so on.
The thing is, does Tyler need to play minions? He can go boom mode and just wait for Blitzchung to do something. And I think it eventually evens out because he'll get the Blast Shield every once in a while, and that will cancel 3.5 hero powers from the Hunter.
But this is the issue now, right?
Okay, now he has to do something.
So Tyler has to respond, and in responding, he probably procs a secret, which means the Bow hits him for 3.
Oh, now okay, he can proc Snipe, but then now he can clear everything just with hero power and the Dinomatic. Blitzchung's on 2 cards, so what if he gets a Bow charge? My goodness, this is just brutal for for the Hunter, having to deal with Boom on curve.
Yeah, what was really good, and I think one of the huge parts of this game, was Tyler being able to shield slam the Mass Contender.
Yeah.
Because that doesn't happen often, that you can do that.
Mm-hmm.
And that means that you have to answer Mass Contender with a minion. So much earlier in the game, these secrets would start snowballing. But for now, as you said, Blitzchung's looking a little bit low on hand size. And a little bit low on value here as Tyler's very safely got to Dr. Boom on curve.
He might even just Zilliax and pass here, because if he doesn't play any minions, neither does Tyler. Like, and if Tyler never plays minions, he never attacks. If he never attacks, none of the secrets get procced. I just don't see how Blitzchung can win by waiting. Even with a Zul'jin loaded up, it's just gonna repeat a lot of the secrets and not override the ones that are already there. And Tyler, knowing that he proc snipe, he can play minions, but he's under no pressure to attack with them. And the second he does attack, he will make sure that he has an answer for all of these. Bear in mind, all the players have access to deck trackers, so that also makes it a lot easier to keep track of what secrets you've tested for already.
Swing now with the baited arrow isn't too shabby, along with even the secret keeper into snakes if he really wanted. But you are right, Blitzchung does have to work out how he gets there, because he didn't have the snowbally start with the minion heavy opening. He's going to hold the secret keeper, not play too heavily into a brawl or even a warpath.
So Tyler, he can proc snakes and use the kaboom to immediately get rid of them. Now it's looking like he might just not attack. Ooh. 1 mana boom. There's 2 bombs in deck, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, 1 swing of the wrench, 1... Oh no, it's 3, right? None have gone off and he had Alec down.
Oh, yeah.
So the Alec Goblin says 3. Deadly shot, not too shabby.
Tyler just doesn't mind if the 5/5 can attack face, and Blitzchung doesn't necessarily even want to. But I'm pretty sure this turn will look like Zilliax and Deadly Shot, but if he chooses to use his weapon to guarantee Deadly Shot onto the 6/6,
he'll never.
Yeah, so he will use the 5/5 to trade into the 1/3, I'm pretty sure. But then that is just another turn of missed face damage.
He can just... Oh, interesting, okay. Yeah. You could always just go face.
But you don't guarantee the Deadly on the Geppetto, which...
Well, he attacks with it, gets frozen, and he has to play a 10-mana Geppetto.
That's fair,
like,
yeah.
Cool, and then you gain a durability on your bow. I think face would have been fine there, to be honest.
Sure, yeah, I can see that.
And now, the filthy warrior things.
Like, how filthy is this even? I mean, obviously...
4 mana, deal 10.
Okay.
Even without rush, that's filthy.
It is crazy, but we should be used to seeing it from warrior by now, is what I mean.
It doesn't change how bad it is. Or good it is, should I say. Oh, Zil, okay, that was one of the bad cards he could draw.
Hunter just looks so sad. But what does he play aside from secrets?
He can just replay secrets like Snipe. Or exactly Snipe.
Yeah, because everything else is filled up already. This is looking real bad for Blitzchung.
Yeah.
Granted, he has the secondary deck with double Hymen, double Frenzy, and a second Unleash the Beast. But that doesn't shore up the early game.
I think
Not necessarily.
I think his early game is fine. He just didn't draw it this game. He
True.
drew a Mass Contender and nothing else early game-wise. And bear in mind, he has double Animal Companion, double Sunreaver Spy, double Secret Keeper, double Mass Contender, like even the Life Drinkers. All of these things should have a very consistent curve. He just didn't draw into him. Look at the amount of secrets he's drawn when he could have drawn Subject 9 that did this for him, as opposed to 1 secret a turn.
I do suppose this is one of those decks that has the quote-unquote high roll curve, which I don't want to call it just a high roll deck, but I do think it's very reliant on having that snowball, and it's built for this purpose. And when you're bringing this type of deck, you should be aware that there is a strong chance that every game, well, not necessarily every game, but some games, you just don't get that high roll curve, and the rest of your game plan is ruined.
Well, I think that's more true against exactly Bomb Warrior. Because if you're against any aggro deck, they can't not attack. So
True.
your secrets gain instant value every time, and you can solo the game with a bow. Against Rogue, they can't really just not attack. Against almost any, even Mage, you have answers to, in terms of how much of a threat a freezing trap is, as well.
Yeah.
A deadly shot, so on, so on. So I think this is potentially one of the roughest matchups to play this version of Hunter against.
That's a very strong point. As for Blitzchung, drawing the Unleash the Beast there, probably the best thing he could have gotten. Not to say that it'll be enough to get him the game, but at least now it loads up the Zul'jin a little bit so that once Tyler deals with this and Blitzchung refills with Zul'jin, he will necessitate a board clear from Tyler.
Right.
And Tyler does have double brawl, but doesn't have any in hand right now.
See, even now, I mean, this might sound really biased just because I like Hunter, but even now with the 3 charges on the bow, the hero power and, you know, let's say a kill command, that's a lot of damage from Blitzchung. Yes, he has to survive and not die in that time, but you can see against a different deck that does have to attack and can't wait how powerful the deck can be.
Beryllium
This is
Nullifier
scary,
buff coming
Yeah.
in for that extra 1 damage, but yeah, you're right.
I don't think it's going to do it here, obviously, but you see that you can get relatively close even in a bad scenario. Oh, so where were you 10 turns ago, Mr. 9? Let's see what Blitzchung can get done. He does really
Christmas
have all
tree
these
again.
secrets, and unfortunately for him, the freezing trap was activated first. Oh, wait, never mind, he can rush into this bomb. Never mind, he doesn't have to rush into this bomb.
So that was a lot of stuff for 10 mana, but
Yep.
Warrior
Bear in mind,
has-
there's all the secrets about the Christmas tree is there, but it's got no lights on it, so it's just green.
green could be a color of light.
Yeah, but the tree itself's normally green as well.
Sure,
Isn't it?
sure. Explosive, Freezing, Rat Snake, and Snipe. If anybody was wondering, there's no misdirection in the package, although sometimes Mass Contender could discover it.
This Misha is clutch as well, right? Because we can see, well, any mech can be used to proc, but he also has to get through the Misha after proccing the freezing trap. It was a very good hero power for Tyler.
Oh, 1 mana, 4/1 rush. That is broken.
That card would be sick, wouldn't it? He's gonna take 5. I could barely even see. So he's.
Ooh, was that a bit of misordering from Tyler there about the Snipe? Granted, I don't think it'll matter in the grand scheme of things,
Well,
but
hang on.
I do think he would have wanted
Is-
to play a different minion there.
Yeah, and also. So he heals for a lot here. So he is on 30, and Blitzchung's obviously on 10, which isn't good. But Blitzchung does have a chance.
I don't see it, Raven.
I mean, this big guy's dead.
Yes, but Tyler has way more mechs in hand. It's just the fact that Zul'jin has been used already. So the big swing turn is over, and from here on, Blitzchung only does fair
Three to
things.
face.
But the thing is, Tyler does not do fair things because he's on boom. He's also got shield block for emergency health gain, should that ever be a concern.
He's going to draw through now anyway. This Omega Devastator doing very powerful things as well, because Blitzchung over the course of a couple of turns could, with the correct draw or two, get there in terms of the damage needed. But the problem is cards like Omega Devastator and Bombs help speed up the clock dramatically for Tyler and slow down the clock for Blitzchung.
Yep. Blitzchung showing his last signs of life here. Tyler went off lethal with the kaboom. That's pretty funny.
Rough for Blitzchung as well that this, with the trade, the Kaboom actually kills off the Wyvern as well. Rough, just because it means that even if he draws another kill command, he can't quite get there.
Can you imagine if Blitzchung just spends the next... Okay, never mind. That hero power was
Oh,
lethal. And
wow.
this bomb is lethal.
Wow.
But I was fully expecting a world where Blitzchung just has to keep dealing with the boards and then swing face for 3 every turn, and we just wait for Tyler to roll the next kaboom. But he did get that last bomb there, and that was not gonna lie, pretty painful to watch. Or even not that there were any big misplays on Blitzchung's part, and we did even see an error on Tyler's part with the rush minion, I think, going into the snipe. But that is just a complete blowout.
It is, yeah. I mean, so I'll just be the optimist for the Hunter for now, but there was, 16 to 17 cards, I think, in Blitzchung's deck with those bombs in as well. He drew 2 of them more or less turn after turn, which did pretty much kill him because he wasn't exactly dead to Tyler's hand straight away. And even with the shield block, there was enough damage from the bow and a kill command and hero power that after maybe 2 more turns, he was threatening Tyler's health pool a little bit. He got him down to, I think, 19 or 20, which with a kill command, a weapon swing, a hero power, and a beast adds up fairly quickly. So there was a chance, but again, the play into the snipe was a big problem because it made the clear into Misha way harder than it needed to be. So obviously if Tyler had just played around snipe a little bit, then that game would have sped up very quickly anyway.
And I do think that the real story here anyway is if the secondary deck from Blitzchung can perform, because I'm almost certain he's going to be switching on to that, which is removing 1 secret, 1 freezing trap, and a bunch of other of these aggro defensive cards, and he's going to put in double Dire Frenzy, double High Main, and that is probably going to help a lot against Warrior.
Yeah, it will, and also make the game plan a little bit more, or at least give him an additional game plan. He doesn't have to get the minions into secrets super early and get them rolling for all that early damage, which is what he missed in the last game. He would actually have to, he can just go slow with high mains and Dire Frenzy as well. But there are also tools that Tyler could change into. His options are along the more of a control matchup, which I doubt he's going to go for in his secondary list, which has cards like Ken, Grandmaster Hellscream, and Elysiana. But Tyler has actually moved on to his tertiary list, which looks a little bit more reasonable to me, which is the additional Town Crier, 2 weapons project. We can check out the deck for you guys so you can actually see that. This is Tyler's, right? Yes. So it's the additional Town Crier, 2 weapons project, a Spellbreaker, and a Harrison, which is very important. And all he's losing is Geppetto, 2 Omega Assemblies, the Augmented Elk, and the 1 Omega Devastator. So although we saw the power of Omega Devastator in the previous game, I feel like the game is actually way better for Tyler.
Yeah, you say only the 2 assemblies, but I feel like that's also a pretty big loss, is all that value generation. And now Tyler is going for more of an aggressive game plan, I'd say. Like, the Harrison Jones is obviously a great addition because that is just gonna clear an Eagle Horn bow, could get you up to 5 or even more draws, and that offsets the draw you lose from Geppetto Joybuzz. But I think looking at Blitzchung's secondary, it might go into a value fatigue game just because of the presence of the frenzies, and he can get up to 4 activations, including the Zul'jin.
Yeah, I guess that's why I think the removal of the Omega Assemblies is fine, because the problem here is the value fatigue game for Blitzchung is high mains and tons of Dire Frenzies. Like, those things will beat most value plays from Warrior in terms of how quickly and consistently they can generate them, because also, even though Dr. Boom is a fantastic hero card, it's not consistent in what its hero power does. Whereas if you start just slamming high main after high main against Warrior, well, even if you play Omega Devastator, it doesn't actually clean up a high main. It's one of the few minions in the game that it doesn't actually just kill by itself.
Yep.
So I think if it goes too slowly, that Blitzchung will actually just win, because he still has his secrets to mess around with. He still has Zul'jin to go for the big late game, but he has these Dire Frenzies which can make him go a long, long way extra.
It's a strong point, and this makes me very curious about how this game will actually pan out, because we saw last time that Tyler did not have to play aggressively at all, because he would win in the late game, given that the Zul'jin from Blitzchung only had pretty much secrets in it. And now Tyler, if he wants to win in the late game, well, it's much more difficult because he doesn't have those Omega Assemblies, but now that means he has to play in the early game, which kind of walks into the secrets from Blitzchung, so now I'm confused.
And I think this is one of the first times, we've talked a lot about secondary and tertiary decks, right? It's a huge part of the specialist format, of course, but I think this is one of the first times where I feel like taking a loss game 1 isn't that bad, because if Blitzchung is, in this matchup specifically, if Blitzchung is like, okay, game 1 I might win, I'll probably lose, games 2 and 3 I'm just going to win, because my deck I've got built for this is so much better than what my opponent can do. It's almost like an LHS style thing where if you lose the first game, but then you can counter so hard that your opponent doesn't have stuff in their lineup to actually beat you. I think this is the first time this has reminded me of that, because this feels like it should be a nightmare for Tyler to deal with.
Yeah, I can see that. I do think that the way Tyler will have to win this is through that window between when you've kind of dealt with the early game from the Hunter in terms of their secrets and those curve out minions, and between that window and when they've set up the high mains into the frenzies, into the Zul'jin. And that is probably a narrow window, so I think Tyler will have to navigate this perfectly, and there's no room for error with things like the Militia Commander into the snipe this game.
I'm pretty sure, though, that from my experience casting Tyler, the times he has misplayed, he normally does tighten it up very quickly afterwards as well. And so if he feels like that was a mistake, then I'm pretty sure now laser focus will be switched on, because not only does he want to win, he also wants to play well, which is something that most of the players rate very, very highly, sometimes even above winning. I've heard some players in the past say all they care about is playing as well as you can possibly play the game, even if you lose.
And I think that is the mark of a truly dedicated player, and I like to see that type of attitude. The mulligan for Blitzchung is already very interesting here. When you play the normal mid-hunter without the secrets, I'd say Unleash the Beast is a keep. But because Blitzchung has so much more potential for a strong curve, I like that he tosses it out. I'm not sure about the mark shot keep, because it seems like this type of hand will put you in the position of aggressor, and so you maybe don't want to be using the mark shot to answer stuff and try instead to look for a secret. But
I do think, though, that if Blitzchung has slipped in, as I say slipped, that makes it sound like a mistake, has moved himself into the mindset of, oh, I'll just high main him, it's fine, then maybe you want the mark shot to negate that window that you talked about earlier of Tyler breaking through with some minions and some pressure. Maybe the mark shot just kills something and stops something stupid happening. And maybe that discovers a secret. You never know.
I think Blitzchung might just be playing a River Croc this turn, which feels bad, but the hand kind of just tells him to hold out until Unleash the Beast.
Doesn't die to the weapon, so even if it pushes 2 to 4 damage, that's pretty good.
Tyler, his first instinct is to Acolyte of Pain there, and it looks good because on board it could get 2 draws. I'm trying to think of what the punish is, and it seems like I was gonna say either re-equip of Eaglehorn, in which case you're happy because he's overriding his weapon, or exactly Animal Companion into either Leok or Huffer.
That'll do.
Yep.
Really good pickup for Blitzchung, because I think he would have considered just overwriting the bow, the weapon with the bow to remove the value there. And also as well, not only does it remove the card draw, it stops the Sunreaver being traded into.
So now Tyler can easily use Militia Commander to deal with this board along with his weapon, and he's already got Boom in hand on 7. So the game plan for having that window open, I think this is the hand to do it. And all these minions from Tyler having 3 health at the end of it is making life very awkward for Blitzchung. Just the Life Drinker would be my instinct here. I wouldn't be too worried about leaving up a 2-3 because it's not a mech. And I feel like the mark shot is a little bit too slow. But then again, we were saying that Blitzchung can take the stance of the late game player in this game, in which case you would want to squeeze the value out of all your minions as much as possible. And
I think Mark Shot would have been okay. I think either way you're probably considering coin into Unleash the Beast. Because what's nice to do a lot of the time is leave a warrior hanging on turn 5, because they often don't have anything great to just do. Or, you know, without you having minions on board to just actually play. Do you see that Town Crier, even with the Goblin follow-up, is just completely reasonable? The double trade in the Life Drinker, though, starts to push Tyler a little bit low on health.
I don't know if he wants to double trade this necessarily. I think Tyler was hoping to pick up the second Militia there for sure.
Right.
Unfortunately got the Zilliax instead. But he is going to take the double trade, I suppose, to prevent any frenzy shenanigans.
Yeah, and if you don't double trade now, you probably take 3 anyway. And there might be some secrets that make the follow-up even harder.
So Blitzchung can coin into Unleash the Beast, and then the next turn play it again. That's always something powerful to do against Warrior.
Yeah, not only does it remove almost every minion that Warrior even has, or value trade against almost every minion Warrior has, should I say, it also puts them in the pool. They're just in the Zul'jin pool straight away.
Looking at it now, it's like Blitzchung is just playing normal mid-range Hunter if you just ignore the Eagle Horn Bow. The snipe could very well have come from a Shimmerfly.
That's true.
But yeah, just goes to show you how much can change in the mulligan and the mentality when you just switch into your secondary deck when only 5 cards are different. Sometimes the entire game plan changes as well. Tyler can just equip the Zilliax onto the Rover and take the trade, or he could have the Zilliax separate. I don't think having just the one big minion would be beneficial for him because he knows it's going to get traded by the Unleash the Beast twin spell.
It's one thing I hate the most when I'm playing against Hunter, playing into their turn 6 or 7.
Yeah.
When you know they have it. It's the same playing against Mage. It's just twin spell, right? When you're playing against Mage when they've Conjureds and you can't clear the board, you're like, I know you can do it next turn. So annoying.
I'm actually quite surprised he magnetized this because he knows the other Unleash the Beast is there.
I guess he's okay just gaining the health and the armor,
Yeah.
right?
So he loses 2 additional health, I think, this way. Barring... Okay, it's tough to say that conclusively because you don't know what the 1-3 would have,
right,
would have healed you in theory. But yeah, this just looked pretty clean for Blitzchung, so I think I would have not magnetized it there.
Ooh, is this gonna actually be removal on this 5-1?
Oh man.
Shield Slam.
Then again, what are the better targets for Shield Slam in this deck?
High mains.
Sure. And I suppose this thing, if it gets Dire Frenzy.
Just gained 5 damage. Baited Arrow.
Wow.
Good card.
Yes, that is absolutely insane versus Warrior.
Oh, this is scary. There's not even been high mains or Dire Frenzies yet, and this is looking scary for Tyler.
He maybe had to Shield Slam there, but I don't blame him for holding on to it because of the threat of high mains, as you mentioned.
Like, if he boom Shield Slams now, he just took 5 extra damage for nothing.
But I think he has to bite the bullet and go for it here. Because he's just going to take another 5 next turn. What?
He's not?
Oh, okay. Well, okay, rolling this hero power is pretty good. And
okay.
That is insane. And now he won't have... Okay, he has shield block to put the armor back on, but yeah.
So this could have been removed and stopped.
Ages ago, yeah.
What, 13 damage extra?
Something like that.
13
for the price of a shield slam.
Wow. That slots in very nicely. The problem, so the problem Blitzchung has right now is that he knows there's a militia commander in hand.
Yes.
So if he snipes, what the snipe effectively achieves is giving his weapon 1 extra swing.
Yeah.
But does he need to with Eagle Horn Bow number 2 in hand? Probably not, so maybe he holds the snipe. He doesn't have Zul'jin, so it means he doesn't want to just get the snipe in the pool, use it, and then be able to replay. He plays Zul'jin and replay the snipe. So I actually think after a bit of consideration, he probably wants to hold it, especially because this militia commander kills the 8-4 so well.
Yes. I think you hit the nail on the head there. That is exactly everything going through Blitzchung's head, and with this attack, it means he's definitely not going to play snipe. So
100%.
Tyler gonna rip the shield slam now, and hindsight is always 20/20. Oh, okay, so he's gonna use the commander this way. So he's really holding on to the shield slam, and I guess there's more reason for it now that he knows there's a bunch of 8/8s in the deck for Blitzchung because of the Dire Frenzy.
Also as well for this play, which is actually going to be very good, which is Silent Shield Slam.
Yes.
Which just clean kills a high main, you've won the board, and Blitzchung just spent his whole turn playing this 1 minion that you just instantly get to kill.
And he's also got Blast Shield to slot on top of the turn. Very clean. But we were talking about that window of pushing damage for Tyler. This is that window. He's on boom mode. Blitzchung does not have Zul'jin active yet, and Blitzchung has kind of run out of threats. He's still got the baited arrow though. But yeah, Tyler doesn't have too many threats of his own to push the initiative.
He does. This game's nuts. So Blitzchung just drew Secret Keeper, which activates Mass Contender. He has the Eagle Horn Bow as well. But then Tyler also drew Weapons Project into Harrison, which is huge. But the problem with that is it draws cards and breaks the bow, but Harrison also gets sniped. Yep. So it's such like, it feels so back and forth right now. And there's 3 8/8s in Blitzchung's deck with Rush, and still Zul'jin.
Yes. I mean, Zul'jin's deck, I think, is of a higher quality than Tyler's, but what Tyler can draw into is a lot of bomb generators, I suppose, and that can put Blitzchung on a timer, essentially, because there are no scale heights in any of the decks he's running. And so, effectively, no way of healing beyond the 5 armor from Zul'jin.
So now Tyler has, I think, a certainty. He knows exactly what those 2 secrets are, because he traded into a minion, and he hit base, which activates Explosive, Freezing, and Snake. The only 2 secrets left are Rat and a Snipe.
Yeah.
So Tyler will not be surprised to see this Snipe. It's not mind-blowing at all, but it's 5 mana, draw 3 cards, and remove the weapon.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a solid card anyway.
We take those, even though it doesn't have the 5/4 body on top of it. Now Blitzchung. Mid-Hunter kind of sucks when you can't run Master's Call, huh?
Yes.
Granted, he's still got things to do, and Tyler is not drawing the bomb generators. Okay, he's got the Wrench Caliber, that's pretty good. But the rest of his hand is reactive.
It's a very strange game right now, isn't it?
For sure.
These hero powers keep summoning these bots is actually pretty sick for Tyler.
Yeah.
It's normally one of the ones you're not really a massive fan of, but when you have nothing else to do, just putting more stuff on the board is pretty sick.
True. I mean, that one and the Discover a Mech one are Tyler's best hero power options, I think, because he's at such a safe health total now that he doesn't need the Blast Shield at the moment. He just needs to use this window. And bear in mind, Tyler's on 7 cards left, and this is the tertiary deck, which is not running Elysiana. It's just got a bunch of bomb stuff left, from what I can see. It's also not got Omega Assemblies. So Tyler, this is pretty much what he has left to work with. Handful of scrappy minions and the boom hero power.
One of the problems as well is, even with the shuffle bombs in, Blitzchung still has Zul'jin.
Yeah.
Which means not only does he gain 5 armor, he probably ends up Dire Frenzying something, which means it's even more cards in the deck, which reduces the chance of chain drawing mobs. Misha, pretty good roll, should I say, on the Animal Companion.
For sure.
The Unleash the Beast going to trade off into the Dino-Matic, which is going to reduce this board state down pretty low. Tyler again with the clutch Dr. Boom hero powers. Not that he now needs them, because he's just drawn Dino-Matic off the top, so he can push the 3 damage to face instead of clearing a minion. This is looking fantastic.
Yep. I think Tyler knows that he has to be the aggressor in this small window left. Blitzchung on the last turn, I like that he used Unleash the Beast there because it was the most awkward to fit in with the rest of his cards, because you can't go for a baited Unleash turn. So I like that he parceled out the mana this way. And now he'll be able to go for a baited and kill command. I don't think he wants to play the Dire Frenzy even next turn, because he really severely needs Zul'jin. Clockwork Goblin, another bomb, but the Dino-Matic very cleanly kills this 5/5 as well.
I think you just go Dino, right? It's too good. Just 5 mana, flip the board. But Tyler, as you can see on the screen there, next to his name will go up to a 5-2 record if he beats Blitzchung, whereas Blitzchung is fighting to go positive overall in Grandmasters so far, and Tyler's looking decent though. It's rough.
I mean, I was wondering a bit about taking the Goblin and then start Wrench Caliber face, because Tyler knows that the second Zul'jin gets... Oh, he's catching in the Frenzy now, which means Zul'jin is technically farther away.
The problem is Tyler doesn't care about Zul'jin, right? He has double brawl.
Sure.
So I think he's just doing everything he can to make sure he doesn't take unneeded damage and just die. And he just keeps generating stuff. It's insane. But like, because he has brawl into brawl, Tyler just needs to not die and maybe push some damage, and the best way there is not leave a 5/5 on the board, which I do really like, because you just don't leave 5, even if you push 3 extra damage over the course of the game because of it. It adds up, but
makes a lot of
gasp
sense.
of surprise and shock indeed.
So Christmas tree,
Zul'jin.
double Dire Frenzy, Mark Shot, Unleash the Beast.
He's like, Okay, well, let's just sit back and watch what happens.
Both of them are green.
Oh, that's a lot of damage.
It is insane.
Sick mark shot.
Oh, he has unleashed the hounds. It's like the good old days of watching Yogg. Oh my god.
That's 20 damage.
We're no longer casting Hearthstone. This
To
is
face.
Casters React to
someone's
Hearthstone
face, yeah.
video.
Wait for the next one next week. Other casters react to casters reacting to this.
Okay.
Oh, 22 cards. Okay, and about 1,000 wyverns.
1,000 is about
Unleash
right.
the wyverns! And it's just the 20 damage to face. Is insane.
Look at this little microbot facing down the entire zoo.
Yeah. This is Wally at his best. Brawl, no surprise. I've got a funny feeling the bot's gonna win.
I have that feeling too.
This is gonna reinforce everything I've been taught about the little guy always wins in the end. And if the little dude does not win,
Oh,
nope,
first one out.
Everything I know about life has been destroyed.
Okay, but Tyler still got the Devastator. And I've not kept good track of how many bombs are left in the deck, but I'm certain that that's Tyler's only chance of winning at this point, barring some insane Mechathune shenanigans if he discovers it. Because...
I mean, yes and no. There's still another wrench caliber, right? And there's a bomb.
Sorry, I just meant the bomb game plan.
Oh, sorry,
is his
sorry.
only chance
okay.
of winning.
It's
Yeah.
like, yeah, Tyler's lost. He should concede now.
Oh no. I mean, Blitzchung's on 8 with no scale hides and no way of healing.
Oh, he's working out whether he should mark shot. I think he should.
What kind of spell would he be looking for? Master's Call, perhaps?
Master's Call,
Yeah.
a kill command.
Yeah.
Like, I think spending the mana now to do the job your hero power would do anyway seems fine. Even if he draws another, discovers Unleash the Beast, that means he can just keep chaining them next turn. And he
like
can always
that.
make up the damage he loses by not using the hero power this turn anyway. And it keeps his Wyvern on 5 health. I think that's important.
I think it's very good to use a mark shot here, especially since Tyler might not even play a minion next turn, which means if you want to get the spell, you need to play it on your own. Oh, wow.
Pushing the damage.
Oh, okay. All right.
So he knows Tyler has the Blast Shield hero power, which is going to gain 7. So maybe Blitzchung's just saying, look, he's already getting enough health. I don't want to give him more, so I want a hero power every single turn.
Okay, I can see the game plan. So Tyler, I think he's fine with using one more path to deal with this.
Yeah, it's fine. So now, Blitzchung needs high main off the top. Or one of these big Wyverns.
It's all about top decking here. Tyler hopes Blitzchung top decks bombs. Blitzchung hopes he top decks pressure.
Also, very important is Tyler is a god at these hero powers.
Yeah.
That hero power puts Blitzchung to 5, which is boom range.
Yes. One bomb and a dream. And Tyler's approaching fatigue.
He can't. Blitzchung can't discover anything that heals him, right?
I don't see a way. It would have to be like Microtech chip.
Wait, he's not used double life drinker this game, right? So Master's Call into a life drinker heals him for 3?
Yeah, that's still in the secondary deck. You're right. You're
it's
right.
like,
Yeah.
I think the only thing, because he doesn't have anything that gives a minion lifesteal. And he has no base minions that have lifesteal anyway, so
no scale heights.
that's the extreme level that Blitzchung has to go to heal. And Blitzchung knows he's taking 3 next turn to face. He knows it.
And I think he's forced to unleash the beast here.
Blast Shield into the Zap Cannon is just insane.
Okay.
Yeah,
I was scared he might not play minion, and I was like, is this some crazy play around Shield Slam? I mean, at least you forced
He'll
Tyler
never use his removal on me. Why? I won't play.
The boom! That's gotta be game.
He can. Wait, so he can play Boom, Shield Slam the 5/5 and Warpath? Is that more damage than the hero power? On average, that works
Yes,
out
I think
more,
so.
right?
Because he doesn't have to attack into the Unleash the Beast if he
Yeah,
does that, and that
exactly,
won't proc the Snake Trap. And I think more often than not, this is lethal.
Oh, wow.
Like, with the 6 boom bots, this is on average 15 damage with the Warpath.
Do it. I mean, he also will have a 7-6 worst case scenario.
Yeah.
A 7-6, and I think what he's considering, it may be technically correct to hero power, because these boom bots always go off, in which your opponent's then on 5, which makes it way more likely they die.
Win now or win later?
6. He needs 2 bombs to do 2 or more damage, right?
What's the order that the Rat Trap procs? If you Warpath now, does the Rat Trap go off and then the booms boom? Maybe that's what he's considering?
Maybe, yeah. Okay, I think this, in tiny worlds, make it more likely to win? I
have no idea.
Someone will have to do the numbers, because I think it's extremely likely to win if the rat doesn't go off first. If the rat does go off first, you could find yourself in some trouble, as this is pretty much Tyler's last push.
Maybe.
Because the problem is...
But now Blitzchung has this window to maybe use the Hounds to buffer some of the Boombot damage.
But the more he buffers the damage, the more Boombots live till next turn. Right?
But he has to do this.
I know he has to, but I'm saying it's not a sure thing.
Sure.
Point, right?
Oh, definitely not. Yeah.
Because the more Hounds are killed, the more bombs end up being live anyway. What he does want to do, he plays the Wyvern first, because the Wyvern can soak way more damage.
Definitely the ideal ordering. And looks like the last Hound survived. I don't think
He
the
can't
difference
take
between 3 and 5 probably doesn't matter as long as it doesn't go face.
Oh,
that is GG with the Kaboom hero power.
So close, but so far. Tyler takes it over Blitzchung 2-0, and that puts Tyler at 5-2 record for Grandmasters so far. And Blitzchung drops to 3-4, and that game was pretty cool. That game looked so even. Almost every single turn of that game felt so close. It wasn't until the very end where Dr. Boom obviously got involved, as he often does, and causes havoc. But that was so close. Even Blitzchung's Zul'jin was so powerful. It would have changed. For example, he didn't draw any of the buffed Huffers, which would have been huge as well in either pushing damage or just killing off Boom, for example. But that was just too much. The bombs going off at the right times. Tyler takes the win, and I'm pretty impressed so far.
Yeah, for sure. And I just look at the deck from Blitzchung, and on paper it looks like it should be great against Warrior because you have High Mains and Frenzy, but looking at it, I now know why everybody chooses mid-Hunter over every other form of Hunter, usually, and that's purely because of Master's Call. When your Zul'jin doesn't also refill your hand, even though you get to play a big threat every turn at best, the Warrior can still just deal with that with the help of Omega Devastator, and then slowly they get to push their own damage, and the bombs just stack up and get there.
Right. I think we will see a very different level of strength from Blitzchung's Hunter deck when he faces Samuel Zal's Hunter a little bit later on this weekend, because suddenly the secrets interact way better with a much more minion aggressive based build, whereas versus Warrior, I do feel like Tyler was one of the opponents you really, or any of the Warrior players to be honest, one of the opponents you really don't want to run into, because obviously, as you mentioned, with mid-range Hunter, you have a much more consistent, clear plan, and with Master's Call being one of the best Hunter cards that exists, it makes that plan even more consistent and more successful. But congratulations to Tyler, though, because going 5-2 now, he is well in contention of the top 3 spot.
Yeah.
And taking down Blitzchung means he's just widening the gap of even being caught up, as well as Blitzchung was directly below Tyler at the standings at the start of today.
He's creeping up there. For him, for Tyler, it might be a bit sad to see that Glory also just got a little bit more out of range, so he is chasing at his heels. But, you know, Tyler, any one of these weeks now could break into those top 3 slots, and of course that is very relevant. If anyone didn't know, top 3 advance to playoffs and get a chance to play at the World Finals.
Yeah, or a chance to qualify for that anyway. I do believe we do have Tyler ready, standing by. Can you hear me?
Yes, Raven.
Oh, awesome. Okay, so first off, congratulations, of course. I just want to get into one of the questions I've got is, let's just break down why you brought Warrior for this submission, because post-buff, there was a lot of decks and classes that got some nice buffs and people thought were going to be popular and are very popular on ladder, which you've been obviously playing a lot of on your stream. But what made you go to Bomb Warrior this week?
I played all the new decks and they were all trash.
Okay.
And,
So you're not a Pogo Rogue fan?
No, I had a solid 48% win rate on ladder with Pogo Rogue Raven. It went from rank 20 legend to like 200. So no, did not believe in that deck. And then yeah, after playing all the decks, I just didn't like any decks, so I just went to the normal strat. And I like Blitzchung is like so predictable. It just plays only aggro. So
Shots fired.
So I knew that Bomb Warrior, if just built like very much early game, would just destroy him. And then he decided to bring Trash Hunter.
So many shots fired.
The deck is so bad, like I couldn't lose it in practice. So yeah, that was a good matchup for me.
So going on from that, if you think the deck's trash, what did you make of the secondary list? Because I feel like his secondary deck that he switched to for game 2 looked very scary from the point of the warrior, mainly just because of how powerful Dire Frenzies and High Mains, and also the extra Unleash the Beast is.
Yeah, the problem is he draws 1 card a turn, right? So even if he has like a bunch of big beasts in his deck, like by the time you saw when he had Zul'jin, he just had no cards in hand, like nothing to do, and he had 1 card a turn, and Warrior just deals with that with Dr. Boom. So
you're saying Master's Call is a good card?
Yes, Master Call is a really good card, and if you play Hunter, you should probably play that over something like Mask Contender.
I wanted to ask about that last turn there where you chose not to Warpath on your board full of Boombots, where it was maybe lethal, I don't know how likely of the time. What was your thought process that turn?
I don't know how likely it was lethal, but I knew that it was probably 0% chance for him to get lethal, and my last card was the weapon. So even if he does some crazy clear, like I just need 2 damage to the face, right? Or even 1 because I had the hero power as well.
Yeah.
So I felt like I didn't need to take the unnecessary risk, and if I just pass, then I just win every single time.
Okay.
Yeah, and finally, just before we let you go, I just
I
want to
have
ask...
one question too, but go ahead.
Fine, we're doing 2 questions more, Tyler. You stuck here with us.
All right.
I just wanted to ask, were you surprised, especially with the performance last weekend and the buff to Christology, that more people didn't bring Holy Wrath Paladin?
Yeah, I expected Blitzchung to go aggro, and I was prepared for Bloodfield potentially going Holy Wrath Paladin, so that's why I tagged in like a Spellbreaker in the third deck.
Okay.
But I was close to bringing it myself, but knowing that Blitzchung was going to go aggro, I think aggro still just destroys it, so I couldn't bring it.
Okay.
And last question, short and sweet. Why no Snip Snap?
We just didn't test it, honestly.
Okay.
And this deck works, so like just play whatever works, right?
Okay.
Yeah, if it's not broke, don't fix it. But congratulations
exactly.
again, Tyler. You're going to go 5-2 and start really competing for that top 3 spot, so good job.
Yeah, thanks.
Congratulations.
Okay, so good job for Tyler there. Blitzchung's predictability may be going to be his downfall. It's one of the reasons Tyler literally just said, yeah, Blitzchung's going to play aggro, so I played Bomb Warrior. And honestly, even at this point, if you feel that you can go 1-1 each week, then that ends you in a reasonable spot, at least, if you ever go to get the 2 wins in any given week from Tyler's spot being at 4-2, but now 5-2. So congratulations to Tyler. We've only got 1 more match left, and it's going to be Chonsu versus Alutimu. So let's see what those guys do after the break.
Dalaran will be ours! Once we land, you know what to do! No we don't. You didn't tell us to play it. I didn't think I had to. It's perfectly obvious. Bank! I am to be robbing the bank! I take henchmen for vault smashing and shiny stealing! Plan is obvious! It's a start, yes, but...
You won't get a single coin unless you take care of the city's guards. Let's rip open Violet Hole and unleash the prisoners on the city. That'll keep the guards busy.
Certainly, but that's not...
No! First, we must sow chaos in the streets.
I got rockets. Anyone need rockets? Try to see the big picture. Shiny, shiny, shiny.
We have to break their will before we can loot, you fools!
Please, everyone, please! Let's drop some rockets to the city. Oh, big candle. And then we just take the whole shebang wherever we want. Yes! Finally, you're exactly right.
Seriously?
That's dumb.
Weak candle. Just wait till second gear kicks in. Yes! It's Like I said, we're going to take Dalaran for all that it's got. It's a genius plan. It's simple. It should have been obvious. And absolutely nothing will go wrong.
So, genius, how do we land?
Last match of the day, and we are continuing to explore the warrior matchups post-buff, and it is going to be Alutimu versus Chonsu. Chonsu not on the druid, as you may have known him for the past couple of weekends, going 0-4, so he's moved away from that, going to be on the warrior, and Alutimu is going to be on the mage. So let's check out the lists and see what we've got coming up and what we're going to be watching. So it's Chonsu's warrior, and Tamigia looks fairly standard outside of this Elysian.
Yeah, I mean, this looks like old warrior, like 3 weeks ago warrior. And while we've criticized Chonsu a lot for bringing Token Druid in the past, I do think he's a very solid player, so I think it's good to see him on a proven solid deck. And it's also very interesting to see that his secondary list is the old way that you tech for mage as well, with the double BGH and Super Collider, although we've seen other warriors moving towards having more aggressive tech, even things like Korkron Elite, I think we saw from Patra.
I like Korkron Elite.
Yeah, I think it makes a lot of sense. So maybe Chonsu's rocking something that is a little bit outdated, but I do think it could still get there against the mage.
Yeah, one heads up thing though with this Elysiana in the main deck, he is going to be facing Rivius later this weekend. That's his second opponent, who is playing warrior.
Yeah.
So having the field where we have so many warriors this weekend, the Elysiana main deck could get him that early win in the mirror matches if he was going to run into him. And one out of his 2 matchups is a mirror match. So pretty good heads up stuff there from Chonsu. But let's check out Alutimu's deck, which is going to be the solo mage player for the weekend. And look at some of those cards. Mainly the stick out ones, as you can see. Lunar Pocket Galaxy now a 5 cost down from 7. So received a huge buff when you consider that a lot of cards, if they take a 1 mana hit, it's a big nerf. But this was a 2 mana reduction, so Lunar Pocket Galaxy can make truly nutty things happen in this mage list. And I think the Polymorph is there just as a bit of an insurance policy in terms of getting blown out by some of the decks that can go a little bit bigger, faster than you.
Yeah, I do think Alutamu probably expected more mages like him in the field, but after the 0 mages last week of APAC now, Alutamu is the only brave soul who came back to playing mage. And this list maybe not so great for the other matches, having the Polymorph in there, and the double Frost Nova is great against mage. I still think this deck is just super solid, and with the buff of Luna's Pocket Galaxy, as you mentioned, cards like Antonidas are unbelievably more powerful when you can get that for a 1 mana.
Yeah, it's a huge deal if you can get it off, and not too much of a sacrifice. It's just the single card, and at the 5 mana slot, you do have some space around that point in the game anyway. One thing I'll mention as well is Alutimu, the only mage, as you said, he is gonna have to prove his worth against Warrior though.
Yes.
He has Chonsu today, and then Tom60229, who is also playing Warrior this weekend, which means that I feel like it's still undecided, this matchup, because so many different players have said different ways to play, different who's favored, different playstyles, different techs, and so on and so on. I feel like this really is just still up in the air. There are players who think you play as the mage extremely, try to be more tempo-based than the warrior to just get ahead and hope they don't have the removal. There are players who think you can go slower and make waves of big boards, that the warrior's brawl just isn't enough to clear, and a lot of warriors, at least not too long ago, were only running one anyway. So it's a tough one, and Alutimu's got to put it out there. He's currently 5-1 in the Division 8 standings. He's at the top of the pack, and he has to really show his knowledge of this matchup this weekend to stay there.
Yeah, conversely, Chunsu is, I think, at the bottom of his division with 1-5, and I will stop ragging on Token Druid from here on out because now he's got a good deck, I think, for the matchup. And as you mentioned, of course, Mage versus Warrior is still up for contention, but at least the secondary deck still has that Super Collider, which is super effective in the matchup.
Yeah. Here we go. Game number 1, Alutimu, Division A leader against Chunsu. Division A bottom place at the moment. Chunsu got a reasonable curve though. Just this Town Crier going to help him draw into more, at least spot removal, which at least Militia Commander is often used as.
Yes, and Alutamu's got a pretty good hand for himself as well, with 2 of those 3-cost cards that fill his hand to make the Mountain Giant a little bit expedited, just hoping to pick up a Conjurer's Calling for the Mage bread and butter to be complete. Ooh, double Arcane. Does this mean you ever coin Arcane?
I mean, is there a massive reason not to? I know the reasons not to in general, but I think this is pretty good to coin it out because you're effectively swapping 1 card for 2 and getting through your deck a little bit quicker. I'm not sure what I think about this, but Chunsu is running double weapons project, so this is... Our team is brave.
Yeah.
I would be terrified of losing this apprentice.
I will say that, like, I would be more inclined to do that if you had an opponent with no weapons projects, but doing that, yeah, it does look super brave to me, but he could very well get rewarded. He could just cash in the Banana Buffoon and make this a 5-4 and go. Granted, that still dies to Militia Commander.
Or he could just coin double intellect.
And that would put him to
9, right? Am I just counting very badly?
After the draw next turn, it's 9, I think. And so the Giant would be playable next turn.
It would put him to 8 and then he draws 1, Actually, I was saying 9 because I forgot the second Arcane Intellect is a card. And then minus is 1. I just didn't take them off.
No worries.
Oh, okay.
I think with the draw he was hoping to get Mana Cyclone. Look how sick it would have been here.
That's the thing, like, drawing's good for Mountain Giant, of course, but also just getting through your deck. You've got some fantastic cards in this Mage deck. I played against a Mage earlier today, and they played, I think, 6 or 7 Ray of Frosts on me, so I just didn't get to really play the game. And it's like, sometimes you do just do that.
Yeah.
Oh,
so
okay, cool.
The mirror images here was a tough decision for Alutamu because it does protect his Sorcerer's Apprentice from Militia Commander and things like that, but it means the Giant is not playable next turn if it gets played. And Chunsu just drew the Warpath, which is absolutely insane here. Pretty sure you rip that every time.
Yeah. I think especially because Chunsu isn't playing... Most people aren't playing Executes right now. I kind of like Execute, but the Warpath, when you're not running Execute at all, this is probably, on average, just good value from the card. It stops anything too nutty happening.
Now, Alutamu has to go back to the drawing board. Arcane Intellect would... he wouldn't overdraw next turn, would he?
I wonder if he... I wonder if Banana Boy is better than that.
It was worth considering.
Just because if you put a minion on the board, it's as likely as it's ever going to be that Chunsu uses some level of removal on it. And if you're using removal on a 2-2, then there's less removal for the Giant, generally speaking, of course.
It does make it so that Chunsu's turn 5 is quite awkward, where he would have wanted, I suppose, to Dynomatic if there were a minion on board. Or even Ziliax. I feel like the play might just be Ziliax and let it stay there.
I believe the correct term is Ziliax, no attacks.
Okay, I just like the fact that there's a minion with 3 attack on board, because this makes it so that even though, let's say, some of the armor gets shaved, somehow you have this insurance policy of being able to shield slam something. But Alutamu has 2 somethings.
Yeah. And then that's going to be even more. And also, even if he didn't, he could have actually just gone for the Ray of Frost as well, which would have caused a bit of an issue. But Chonsu had to do something. He literally just could not pass. So there's still Ziliax into Shield Slam.
The thing is, I don't see a way to clear both of these. And any preemptive damage is bad because you know Alutamu has the other half of the Conjurer's Calling.
Oh, he can't set it up either where... Because one thing you can do to make it at least awkward for a mage is do the preemptive damage, which stops them getting a trade. So they have to just play the Conjurers and don't get to swing with the big dude.
Yep.
But I don't think Chonsu can do that anyway, so he's just going to clear one, and that's probably just going to be it in terms of minion interaction.
The unfortunate thing is, like, ideally you'd want a Ziliax while you have a guaranteed mech on board to be able to magnetize it onto, but by doing that, he still wouldn't have enough damage to clear off a 7/8, and then suddenly those 7/8s are going face, or they're trading into that, and then you won't have armor anymore to use the shield slam. So
value trade, and then more stuff.
You really had to bite the bullet there. Chonsu's main deck is not running any Super Colliders, which is definitely something that Alutamu was happy about and probably feels a bit more free. And he doesn't even position for Super Collider because he knows it's not
matter.
there. Not that, because the 3/4 could have taken a trade, but still. Magnetizing the Ziliax now still doesn't deal with the giant, and he doesn't have any health to heal anyway. So maybe you just go Clockwork Wrench Caliber. Nah, Militia Commander can deal with the giant along with the trade.
Oh, this is horrible, isn't it? This is just an unfun turn, no matter which way you look at it.
What I've been looking at is maybe you just go for double bombs in the deck, and with the Wrench Caliber equipped, you swing it again next turn maybe, and then the Dr. Boom gets full bombs, but...
He's going to go for a clear on one of the giants. He's seen one full set of Conjurer's Calling, so this just strictly removes the damage, and then the follow-up is just going to be as defensive as possible.
I do
think this was as good as it was ever going to get.
It is safer overall. I think the bombs play was probably too slow. But Alutamu can go to town here. I like the idea of playing the expensive giant.
Yep, it's never realistically going to get cheaper, is it? And if it is, you probably already won.
Yep.
And it's just the same problem once again, except now Chonsu has no armor.
He has 1 of Brawl in the deck, but it is not present. Can get up to 4 armor this turn with the trade in hero power, but that only deals with half a giant.
What now?
I do think he may just have to play Clockwork Goblin and Wrench Caliber.
He could trade Ziliax hero power shield slam 1, right?
Where do you get the other 2 armor?
From the trade. You do 4 with the 2 minions, and then the hit from the rover plus the hero power, right? Would be the extra 4, the total 4.
But wait, you want to hit with the rover and then hit with the Zilia? That doesn't work, right?
No, separately.
You don't magnetize.
Yeah, no magnetize. That's the problem. You can't magnetize if you do.
Yeah,
I'm just thinking of the extreme circumstances to kill a giant.
Right.
But yeah, sorry, no magnetize. You hit with the rover. You hit with the Ziliax. Armor up and shield slam would have killed a giant.
Yeah.
But again, I'm just thinking of extreme ways Chonsu has to do here because Alutamu knows he doesn't have Brawl as well, because Brawl almost certainly would have been played by now.
Yeah, while that was possible, I don't think it would have been a winning play. Not that Chonsu has any winning plays
name
from
me
this
the winning
kind of
play.
situation.
There's the competition. Let me know. The winning play is hope you draw Brawl, and then hope you can play a minion and it wins the Brawl.
Pretty much.
I really like this as well. You don't trade. All phase, push 16, set up lethal. and ask Chonsu to do something quite magnificent.
Ziliax is rather good here. At least he can finally clear a giant.
The problem is there's the polymorph,
Yes.
which just you cannot rely on Ziliax defending the following turn, which is a little bit scary.
If the play from Chonsu is Ziliax traded into the 8-5 and play Clockwork Goblin, he goes up to 20 health. There's 16 showing on board. I think in that case, Sorcerer's Apprentice would be lethal because there's 2 bananas and another buffoon. But I don't see any better options.
Yeah, I
That's
think,
just a
I think it
blowout.
has to do it. Yeah, you can't just leave 3 giants on the board. That's just, you just lose anyway. So I think this is a play that has to be made.
Yep.
The good thing is, with a trade this turn, if there was a trade, we can see polymorph, of course, but in Chonsu's mind, if one of the giants trades and doesn't get Conjuring, he can just armor up Shield Slam one next turn, because the Ziliax or the Dynamatic, I guess, technically deals 6. But the polymorph's going to come down here and open up 16 damage again. It could be 18 if he wants to use the bananas. So even push 18 and Nova?
Yeah.
But Chonsu just doesn't have Brawl, right?
Yeah.
So you just push,
He's got
put
the
him to
hard
2
one.
and Frost Nova.
I like it.
A way for a warrior to discover spells, so buffing the damaged one doesn't, well, is only better to make it less likely to die to a trade.
And buffing 2 wouldn't even get it out of range. Sorry, buffing 1 twice wouldn't even get it out of range of the Omega Devastator.
Right.
So this just definitely makes sense.
Okay, no Nova, so there's damage available, but let's be honest. There's a lot of health available too.
Oh yeah.
And 5 Warpaths
Does not
does
kill
not
both
really do it.
Nope, that is just a complete blowout. And that's sometimes how the matchup works. And that's why Chonsu has this secondary, which is exactly for Mage. Rockin' double BGH, a second Brawl, and 1 Super Collider. I think having the double Super Colliders.
This gets there, I guess. And sometimes it has to be godlike,
Okay.
but it gets there.
Okay.
It's worth going for.
Yeah, for sure.
Oh, I saw a 1 and a 2. And that is just going to be game. But Chonsu, fair play to going for it, because to be fair, if those bombs just do what he wants them to do, he's in the game again, because there isn't really a board left for Alutimu, and even though we can see he could generate a board, it's just another turn and another turn that Chonsu could have maybe made something happen there, but Alutimu gets game number 1 very successfully, and I really do think that early draw and the Apprentice living for a turn was insane. To go for Apprentice against a Town Crier being on the board, but I guess that often doesn't make much difference. But I guess Warpath would have killed it off with the Town Crier too on curve. But the double weapons project as well was just super brave and paid off for him as he managed to get some more spells down a little bit easier, get those arcane intellects going, and also along with that mirror image, which ended up being cleared but still pretty powerful. But then once he started chaining giants with that coin especially, it was insane. Chonsu just couldn't keep up.
Yeah, I mean, you covered everything. Sometimes the warrior just doesn't have their answers there. Like, I do think that weapons project, as you mentioned, could have made a huge difference there, not only to kill the Apprentice, but maybe get more armor to activate a shield slam. Because we saw Chonsu have to wait, what was it, 2 or 3 turns before it was actually active to kill a giant. And by that time, he was too close to being dead already.
Yeah, and we've just got the list notifications in the players can change to their secondary or tertiary deck. This is their specialist, so they always start on that primary list, but then they have some leeway into which one they move to. So let's check out the list. Alutimu is going to be on his tertiary deck. I believe, we're going to Chonsu's first, my bad. And he's, of course, no real surprise going on to that secondary deck. So it's the usual, isn't it, Gia?
It is very much for Mage, and even though we've seen BGH kind of falling out of favor because it just is too slow sometimes to deal with just one giant, it's still a decent card compared to what he's removed from the deck, so I think this definitely gives him a lot more of a chance, even though it seems like the philosophy of teching against Mage's Bomb Warrior now has moved towards just filling out with earlier minions.
Seeing the weapons project being out hurts. I think weapons project is good versus Mage, personally. I think being able to even just chip away at the early minions and gain sudden armor, as you mentioned earlier, for the shield slams, I personally think weapon project is pretty decent. I'm not saying maybe there's nowhere else to cut from for in this specific list, but still, I think the No Weapons project could be a little bit rough. But let's check out Alutimu's list. He has moved over to his tertiary deck, and this is a bit of a new style we've been seeing from the mage. This isn't a usual tertiary deck of, say, Astromancers and stuff. This is actually a Messenger Raven, always a fan, a Sandbinder, which I think is a very good card right now, especially for the Giants specifically, but Sandbinder in this deck basically draws you 2 of your best cards, or 1 of 2 of your best cards.
Yeah.
And Twilight Drakes, too.
I have to say, this is probably my favorite sideboard out of everyone in APAC this week, because I think that the way Mage techs for Warrior, just as the new philosophy of teching for Mage as Warrior is to have earlier minions, I think that's the philosophy for teching against Warriors Mage, is to have these mid-range threats like Twilight Drake, which since the beginning of time, Warriors have kind of struggled to answer, whether it be against Handlock or now in Mage. And having things like Astromancer, while on paper it looks good, usually if the Warrior is still safe to that point where you play Astromancer on curve, then they can probably Super Collider a bit safely, or they're getting closer to being able to swing more efficiently with Omega Devastator. So I like that the Mage is running these earlier threats that can help snowball into the Giant turn.
Yeah, I have to agree. I think this is really heads up, because if you get to that extent of late game where an additional 2 Astromancers and sometimes other stuff like Power of Creation and maybe even some of the dragons sometimes, if you get that late versus Bomb Warrior, they've probably had a very weak early game, which means you were probably winning regardless if they have a very weak early game. The problem is, it's cards you can only play 1 a turn of anyway, and if you have your hand or your deck full of super late game, the Bomb Warrior was often killing mages earlier than those cards even mattered anyway. Whereas, as you mentioned, this is stuff that can just be played on curve, a little bit more reminiscent of the first set of Conjurers Call Mages that came out with the Twilight Drakes and the Messenger Ravens, just to help out. And then against Sandbinder, really solid card I like that just draws you a good card from your deck.
Yeah, and importantly, I think that the way the tertiary deck from Alutamu interacts with the secondary deck from Chonsu, I think Alutamu comes out favored, because the BGHs and Super Colliders don't really deal well with the Twilight Drakes.
And I think it's no surprise as well that...
Oh, we're seeing it again!
I mean, now there's no weapons project, you definitely do it now.
Exactly.
Especially with this hand.
Almost always living.
Our team is like 1 Sea Giant away from a good time.
Oh, yeah. Oh my goodness.
1 super guy. As, if you guys know that small level reference there. But the Augmented Alec is going to come out.
Wow, that looks like a good time too.
Yeah.
Evocation! Raven, that's crazy. But Conjurer's calling. But with this hand, I'm pretty sure you take the Evocation. Oh my god, Rate of Frost as well. This is insane.
You just evocate into the Cyclone that gets you a Conjurer's Calling anyway, so this is fine.
I just want to see Chonsu's reaction at the end of this. Yeah.
Yep.
That looks
I would also make that face, Chonsu.
That looks like the most accurate facial representation of the word yikes I've ever seen.
Conjurer's Calling, I told you. That's the Hallotimu making the correct play. You don't discover the Conjurers, you just generate it instead.
The Spectres is pretty sick too, because his sideboard is full of minions that he added into the deck, and he cut the Novas, he cut a Polymorph.
And with Conjurer's Calling or 1 Conjurer's Calling already in hand, you could potentially just say, oh well, I can't burn, if I burn another Conjurers, then I gained 1 anyway.
Yeah.
So I'm only at a total net gain of drawing cards with this card. Let's see what he gets. Oh well, already worth. That's fine, that makes him flat and he loses a mirror image. I think Alutimu came out on top on that turn. I'm gonna go wild and make that statement.
Most controversial thing you've ever said, Raven. But a small correction, he actually has cut the Sea Giants from the tertiary deck. So there was no potential to go off of that with the Khadgar, but he did go off in a different way. And Chonsu, even if he had the Warpath, would be 1 mana off being able to double it up this turn and clear the board. And he doesn't even want a shield block, because generally you want to save that on the turn that you go off with a shield slam. But I think in this case, he's forced to try and draw something better.
I think when you look at that last turn from Alutimu, I honestly looked up at Chonsu's hand. It was Chonsu's turn, you know, after it makes sense. Saw the 3 out of 3 mana and was like, wow, that was turn 3 for Alutimu. And you just did that. This deck is busted. Why are more people playing it?
Mage wasn't even on coin this game.
It's just silly. I think you can trade.
I don't see a reason to.
To trade?
Uh,
Do
sure, I
you
guess.
want more bombs shuffled sometimes? And like, my point is, I normally like push as much damage as possible, but do you? What am I trying to say? Is it ever open to more risk by leaving it alive?
Probably not in the immediate next turn, but I would say the punish is probably Brawl 2 turns from now by
Right.
having more stuff on the board that isn't a giant. But instead, he's just going to remove it
Just gonna go
with
for
the
it,
Ray
okay.
of Frost. I think I like this too, because next turn, Chonsu can do nothing to deal with this. There's not enough mana to BGH or Brawl or do something like shield block, shield slam.
There's literally not a card in his deck that allows him to deal with this board outside
Exactly.
of. He could deal with all of the 2 health stuff with double Warpath, and that's as good as it gets, right? That is literally the best thing Chonsu could do that turn, and then Alutimu just laughs, plays Khadgar and Conjur's Calling, and then continues to laugh.
I would love to see the laughs if they actually happen, because Alutemu strikes me as a very polite person that wouldn't do that, but that would make for a great show.
Doesn't go for Khadgar now, of course, because the board wasn't cleared, so, you know, I was talking about Khadgar if the Warpaths come down, but this is just... wait, what was the secret? Was it Counterspell? It was Counterspell.
Yes, it was.
He can't even brawl if he had it. It's
That's
literally
just-
one of
it's
the
over.
best... This is literally, I'm not even joking, one of the best Mage games I've ever seen in terms of sheer power on curve against a certain deck. Chonsu can literally do nothing. Again, he's not allowed to play the game.
No, he's not.
He can't even use Super Collider.
Yeah,
'cause it
because of the
does
taunt.
nothing.
Yeah.
Oh.
The taunt won't be enough to deal with the giant. And the VGH killing the 8/8 would still leave 13 on board, which means he's dead to ping. And I don't know.
He's just dead?
Yeah,
It's like
over.
I said, I've cast a lot of Mage and I've played a lot of Mage. I've done some funky things and seen some funky things. But this is probably the turn for turn best Mage game I've ever seen in terms of not only the Mage's turns, but how the Mage's turns locked out their opponent's turns as well.
I just feel for Chonsu right now. If
He's
you
gonna
guys caught last week, his last game was also something he couldn't do much about, in which he took 25 damage on the middle of a game against OTK Paladin purely by accident, and he was in a good spot there.
So it was 1 damage off lethal now. And,
Right.
and the Cinderstorm, which guaranteed
yeah.
the kill because there's only a 2 health minion on the board. That is going to be game, and Alutimu takes a win over Chonsu 2-0. And that means Alutimu is going to go for a total of 6-1 so far in Hearthstone Grandmasters. Just a reminder, in case you don't know, Alutimu has gone by the name of Machamp in the past. So just in case you've seen playoffs and you recognize that name instead of Alutimu, he recently changed it, but his name is going to be being thrown around even more now. Not only is he a Grandmasters player, but he's also leading Division A by a reasonable margin. It's absolutely pretty, just insane so far. Just 2 zeros all the way. Let's check out the results from today. Although it felt like they all happened in the last 5 minutes, so you probably can remember them all anyway. You don't need me to read them out, but I will. Dawn takes a win with the Token Druid against Blood Trail's Warrior. Really impressive, and I actually much prefer this version of Token Druid versus the other versions we've seen in previous weeks. And then Glory took a win over Patra, so further cementing his spot as well. He's been sitting around top 3 in Division B, and that means he's looking at pretty good to hold on to that top 3 at least for day 1. And then we had Shaxi just do stuff with this rogue deck. If you're gonna watch one match, watch this feature match for today.
Sure.
If you're just tuning in, you've just missed the day because it was quick, because it was all 2-0s. Just for me, go back and watch Shaxi versus Samuel Zhao because it was nuts.
And if you have to watch one other game, I would highly recommend Tyler versus Blitzchung. Not necessarily because of the way the games panned out, but because of Tyler's trash talk at the end of it, where he just called Blitzchung's deck trash and called Blitzchung himself predictable. Some strong words from Tyler there, and really starting up some drama in APAC, because I feel like our region could use some of that.
Yeah, and if you want to watch 3 more matches, then watch the other 3 and you'll have watched whole of day 1. But we did finally have I'll just take over, but Alutimu over Chonsu in a blink of an eye. Impressive mage play, and although it didn't really come into it, I do love Alutimu's tech choices in his side deck that he did lock into game 2. It was sick. But let's look at the standings updated just for you guys, and let's look at that. Alutimu 6-1 at the top of Division A, and to be honest, running away from everyone else right now.
Yeah, Alutamu, Dawn, and Shaxi all started the day at the top of the table. They've gone even farther now and cemented that, although Glory and Tyler creeping up there. Just one little slip up from Dawn or Shaxi could mean that either of them could take the top 2 slots, and for Tyler that's especially important because top 3 are the ones that advance to playoffs. And we are hitting the halfway mark now that it is week 4 and the season is 8 weeks in total, and now it's looking really rough for players like Chonsu and Pacha and Samuel Tsao, who have a long way to go if they want to even get even now.
Yeah, they pretty much have to win every single game, every single match, that they play for the rest of the time. Just to take a quick note as well on these scores, obviously there are more matches and there are players who haven't played yet so far. It's only day 1 of this weekend.
That's right.
But when you think, especially in Group Division B, if Glory and Tyler win their matches and Dawn and Shaxi lose their matches, then that is just all up in the air with 4 players at the top and only 3 spots. That is getting awfully close, right? I feel like Alutimu, if he keeps doing what he's doing, he's looking fantastic, because not only is he, getting the wins, right? He's 6-1. If he keeps winning, of course he'll do well. But I feel like his deck choices and his play are extremely solid. So not only the in-game play, but the out-of-game preparation and deck decisions seem very strong to me out of everyone here.
It's true. I actually had the privilege to interview Alutamu at the Grandmasters Summit that was held right after Worlds, and he's the type of player that all the top pros know from ladder because he's just been a god on ladder, but not too many people have seen his face. The only first time I heard of him playing at a tournament was at HCT Tokyo, and then didn't hear much from him afterwards except for some playoffs appearances. But in his interview he said that he was actually pretty comfortable with this specialist format, being somebody who is a ladder grinder, somebody who considers anything below top 25 legend as dumpster. He did say that.
I'm never going to tell Alutimu my average rank.
But yeah, I mean, maybe the format is just something he's comfortable with, because on ladder you do just, generally, if you have that one deck and a few tech choices, you can just keep queuing that up. And he's just got the read on the field pretty well every single time, and his play has been up to par to match it.
Yeah, he's been doing really well, but it is only day number 1 for us. We've got 2 more days this weekend, but most importantly, we are done for the day, and we've got Europe coming up soon, followed by Americas, so the Hearthstone never ends all weekend. We hope you enjoyed the matches today. Went by super quick, so hope you appreciate that one. We've got plenty more coming up for the rest of this weekend, so we'll see you tomorrow.